Chapter 57. With your permission, you are listening at Novel Full.audio. When Renha walked around Yin Hanjiang's body and saw that his face was flushed, with a handkerchief in his palm. With a wine jug at his side, grasping an empty wine cup with his other hand, he was holding Wen Renha robe in his arms. Patriarch Yin, are you weak at drinking? Wen Renha asked. If a cultivator did not want to get drunk, he could completely force out the strength of the wine with his genuine qi and would not get drunk at all. If he was drunk, either he hadn't forced out the wine or he was drinking immortal wine. When Renha sniffed the wine jug, in the wine pot was the kind of spiritual wine he often drank, made from the spiritual fruits of the back mountains. It was a good wine, but it was not intoxicating. Yin Hanjiang's drunken eyes were drowsy, and his red robe slipped off in a large part. He half raised his eyes to look at Wen Renha before pouring himself another cup of wine, drank it down and then say. Didn't you call me Hanjiang these days? Why are you calling me Patriarch Yin again? Hanjiang. Wen Renha asked rhetorically. He had never seen Yin Hanjiang look like this. In his impression, Patriarch Yin was always dressed in black and silent like a shadow. Even though Wen Renha knew that he was handsome, he always acted like he was invisible, so it was easy to overlook. The current Yin Hanjiang wore a robe redder than blood and his ink-black hair were fluttering lightly with the breeze. But there was wickedness between his eyebrows, so if he appeared in the crowd, he would be the one who attracted the most attention. When Renha remembered that Yin Hanjiang usually did not drink and only dared to sneak a sip when he wasn't paying attention. He never thought he would see him drink one cup after another. This wine jug and wine cup, when Renha raised his eyebrows, vaguely remembering that he presented them to the other party after Yin Hanjiang stole a drink that time. It's the one Venerable drank from. Yin Hanjiang's lips pressed against the empty wine cup, the corners of his lips revealing a light smile. A strange feeling arose in Wen Renha's heart as he observed the Yin Hanjiang he had never seen before, who was much more striking than his once silent self. This Venerable thought you didn't like to drink. When Renha also sat on Yin Hanjiang's left side, the development of the situation was beyond his expectation, but he didn't mind having a good conversation with Yin Hanjiang. Yes, I don't like drinking. Yin Hanjiang looked to his right and raised his cup to the empty night. I love the wine that Venerable has drunk. If Venerable will take a sip first, I'm willing to taste it. Wen Renha. Only then did he notice that for every cup of wine Yin Hanjiang poured, he would first tilt it to the right side and spill a little wine. He acted as if he was feeding someone wine. After feeding the air and drinking, Yin Hanjiang then turned the wine glass around and put the side that was facing the air on his lips and then slowly drank the wine. Patriarch Yin, who are you feeding wine? When Renha noticed that something was wrong. Why, do you want to drink, too? Yin Hanjiang's hazel drunken eyes looked at Wen Renha and then he picked up the wine jug and shook it. Unfortunately, there is no more wine left. He picked up the jug, took his red clothes and wiped the non-existent dust, then he put the cold jug against his face and closed his eyes happily as he said. This is the jug and wine cup that Venerable gave me. He drank from it. Then he picked up the handkerchief he was holding in his palm and said. This is the handkerchief Venerable had wiped his hands with. It had the blood of Protector Shu on it, so I washed it and put it away. When Renha frowned, he thought for a long time before remembering that Shu Yanyan mistakenly thought that he liked Bailey Qingmiao and wanted to lure Wen Renha to pursue her. At that time, in order to warn Shu Yanyan, Wen Renha pierced his 5 fingers almost completely through her skull, leaving Shu Yanyan's blood on his fingertips. At that time, Yin Hanjiang, who was standing behind Wen Renha, handed him out a handkerchief, but after Wen Renha wiped his hand, he threw it away. Yin Hanjiang wiped his face with a handkerchief and smiled with satisfaction, then carefully put the handkerchief, wine cup and wine jug into his storage bag and left with an alcade triangular bayonet by his side. When the alcade triangular bayonet was refined, Wen Renha blood and soul was incorporated into it, so he could tell at a glance that this was originally the alcade sword. Wen Renha could not help but ask. Patriarch Yin, is this your soul-bound weapon? Wasn't it originally a sword? Why has it become like this now? Venerable wanted me to practice with the sword, so I practiced with it. Venerable thought that I was suitable for sword cultivation, so I became a sword cultivator. Yin Hanjiang hugged Wenrenha robe, his eyes a little lost. Venerable did not allow me to accompany him to death, so I lived. Patriarch Yin, it was only Venerable's suggestion, but it might not necessarily be suitable for you. You don't have to do everything according to my idea. When Renha looked at Yin Hanjiang and suddenly realized that he had never seen this loyal subordinate clearly, the Yin Hanjiang in his eyes was Yin Hanjiang's self according to Wen Renha's expectation. He thought he had expressed himself clearly, but who knew that Yin Hanjiang would not look at him and just stretched his hand to the air in front of him, seemingly touching someone's face and whispered. Venerable likes Bailey Qingmiao, right? Is it okay if I send her to you? This Venerable does not like her. Wen Renha assured him. This time Yin Hanjiang's eyes finally fell on Wen Renha and he raised his hand wanting to grab Wen Renha's sleeve, but his palm went through Wen Renha's body. At this moment, Wen Renha's body was made from condensed chaotic qi, so he was not an entity that could be touched. This Venerable, Wen Renha was just about to explain his current state, when he heard Yin Hanjiang say. Fake. Yin Hanjiang's expression was so calm as if he had experienced it 1,000 times before. He kept reaching out to the front, the back and the right, and every time his arms were empty. He laughed loudly to the sky. Fake, all fake. Only this is true. He hugged Wen Renha robe tightly, curled up his body, and lay down on the edge of the spiritual spring, quietly closing his eyes, seemingly already asleep. Patriarch Yin, how many of me are there in your eyes? Wen Renha started to roughly understand Yin Hanjiang's condition at this moment, so he couldn't help asking. Yin Hanjiang did not answer, he would only talk to the illusions when he was lonely. But more often than not, they were ignored, especially when there were people around. Yin Hanjiang did not want to reveal his weaknesses. When Renha sat next to Yin Hanjiang, recalling the ghost face in the later period of abusive love affair and combined this with the Yin Hanjiang in front of him, and he finally seemed to understand something. It's not that Yin Hanjiang went mad because of heart demons, but rather that Yin Hanjiang had always suppressed his character for the sake of Wen Renha. Since he saw the book, he had always told Yin Hanjiang that what he needed was not a subordinate who would do everything he was told, but rather a companion who could go hand in hand with him. From the time he picked up the boy and told him to practice his sword, Wen Renha had always instilled in Yin Hanjiang what he thought he wanted, but it might not have been what Yin Hanjiang wanted. Wen Renha always thought that Yin Hanjiang's qualifications were suitable for sword training, so he had always wanted Yin Hanjiang to practice swordsmanship. Wen Renha thought that Yin Hanjiang was his most trusted subordinate, so he believed that he would be able to maintain the Shenyuan sect after his departure, and Yin Hanjiang tried to do what he wanted. Whenever Wen Renha's ideas contradicted Yin Hanjiang's nature, he always chose Wen Renha over himself. Devil Venerable sat by the spiritual spring and saw the full moon rising in the sky. He used his genuine qi to take out a handful of water from his space and looked at the full moon reflected in the water. This was Yin Hanjiang's favorite pastime as a child. After the massive demonic war, he had given it to Wen Renha. It was as if an image appeared in Wen Renha's eyes, Yin Hanjiang as a young man looking at the false moon in the water and quietly smiling. It was this Venerable who was wrong. Wen Renha put away the handful of water and said softly. He picked up this child, raised him the way he wanted and gave him what he thought was best, but never thought whether Yin Hanjiang needed these things. Heart demons can never be formed overnight, so from the beginning Wen Renha was the one who planted them in the heart of Yin Hanjiang. He took out the red stone, held it in his palm, and whispered. Borrowing it. Holding the stone, Wen Renha's body condensed into an entity, and the clothes conjured from chaotic qi disappeared. He tapped his fingertips and put on the clothes in Yin Hanjiang's arms and sat beside him, stretching out his palm to gently stroke Yin Hanjiang's hair. Yin Hanjiang's spiritual consciousness was very strong, so he immediately came back to his senses. When he found that the robe was gone he looked panicked, he no longer had the determined and calm look from before as he scrambled around, looking for the robe. When Renha waved his sleeve and said in a low voice, "Here it is." He then saw Wen Renha wearing his real clothing, so he grabbed Wen Renha's hand and found that it was actually solid. Has the heart demon already gotten this strong? Yin Hanjiang shook his head in disbelief, thinking in his heart that it was fake, but his palm held Wen Renha's hand without letting go. Patriarch Yin, this venerable is real. I have returned from the underworld blood sea. Wen Renha firmly said. Yes, venerable has returned. Yin Hanjiang didn't believe it and just casually agreed. Wen Renha didn't mind that he was treating him as a fake and just took this opportunity to say. The Wen family has been loyal to the emperor and loved the people for generations, but in the end the whole family was executed. I pieced together countless severed bones in the mass grave, and every time I found one I would expect that there was still a head on it. But none of them were still alive. Probably since then, I have had an obsession in my heart, hoping that at least one person from the Wen family could have survived. Years later, I thought I had let go of my past and become free from the turmoil of the mortal world, embarking on the road of immortality, but I didn't know that this obsession was always hidden in my heart. When I found you in the mass grave, my first reaction was to touch your neck, but from then on, I confused you with the survivors of the Wen family, and raised you in the same way I would have raised an outstanding general. It's my fault, it was my obsession that turned you into what you are now. Wen Renha took Yin Hanjiang into his arms, and said softly. From now on, Yin Hanjiang can't live for Wen Renha, use your eyes to see, use your ears to hear. There is no need to wear a mask or pretend anymore, do what you want to do. A warm embrace, a gentle voice and words that he had never heard before caused Yin Hanjiang to knowingly indulge in it even though he knew it was just his heart demons. I want to take revenge for my lord. Yin Hanjiang said, I have a cruel heart and may spoil my lord's previous plans, I must be patient and not willful. You can be willful. Wen Renha said. This venerable allows it, whatever you want to do, I will help you. I want to destroy all the things that venerable likes and offer them to you, sending them down to keep you company, can I? Yin Hanjiang lifted his head and looked expectantly at Wen Renha. This venerable doesn't like Bailey Qingmiao, so there is no need to burn her. Wen Renha clarified. How nice, Yin Hanjiang sighed softly, no wonder countless people indulge in the illusion of heart demons unable to extricate themselves, this is actually such a beautiful thing. This venerable is not an illusion created by heart demons. Yin Hanjiang did not take this statement seriously at all and just pursed his lips as he gathered his courage to say. The subordinates want to like his lord, can he? The author has something to say. Yin Hanjiang. I want to light a lamp Wen Renha. I don't like Bailey Qingmiao, no need to burn her, no need. Yin Hanjiang. Then I'll burn myself Wen Renha. No, no, no. Put down the fire. Edited by Ninja, proofread by Neo. Chapter 58. Foregone conclusion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yin Hanjiang's words were shocking. Wen Renha still remembered that Yin Hanjiang had never known anything about feelings. When he Wen Chao deceived Bailey Qingmiao that he was not having a relationship with Xu Yanyan, Wen Renha once asked Yin Hanjiang, Protector Yin, would you believe such words? Is love really so demeaning? At that time, Yin Hanjiang replied. Whatever venerable says, this subordinate will believe, whatever the other people say this subordinate will only take it at face value. Wen Renha had always thought that Yin Hanjiang was equally ignorant as him, but today Yin Hanjiang said that he wanted to like Wen Renha. Was it because of heart demons or was it Yin Hanjiang's own thoughts? Seeing that Wen Renha did not answer for a long time, Yin Hanjiang became a little upset. He pushed Wen Renha down and stared at him with a lightly sinister look from above. A mere heart demon, how dare you refuse me? Wen Renha had never seen such an unreasonable Yin Hanjiang, so he opened his mouth and said, Patriarch Yin, before the words could have left his mouth, Yin Hanjiang lowered his head and decisively kissed Wen Renha. Slightly cold lips pressed against Wen Renha with a slight wine fragrance. Wen Renha had never had such an experience in his life, and half of his body was already tingling. His body was made from chaotic qi now, so he couldn't push Yin Hanjiang away by using his genuine qi. At this moment, Wen Renha lost his sense of time, leaving only the cool softness on his lips. He was still wondering why Yin Hanjiang's body was so cold when the man in red had already released him and sat up trembling. Yin Hanjiang rubbed his temples, then took out a bottle of spiritual spring water and patted it on his face, whispering to himself. Why should I care what the heart demon says? He squinted at Wen Renha, his eyes cold as the corner of his lips curled up. Smiling without any warmth, as if he was mocking himself. The man in red stood up and took advantage of Wen Renha's daze to yank off his robe, then the man clutched it in his arms and turned away without looking back, leaving Wen Renha alone in the night breeze. The red stone fell loose and Wen Renha changed back into a chaotic qi body. He touched his lips with his fingertips, only to feel that his soul was tingling. He picked up the stone and took out the abusive love affair. The first time Wen Chao and Bailey Qingmiao met, Bailey Qingmiao touched the fingers of her elder martial brother and felt a tingle from the fingertips to the bottom of her heart, making her heart beat wildly. At that time, Wen Renha only thought that this was the after-effects of Bailey Qingmiao being struck by heavenly lightning. Only now did he understand that there was really a tingling sensation when people touched each other. When Renha poked his hand into the spiritual spring, the warm spring water was much warmer than Yin Hanjiang's hand. After talking with Zhong Liqian, Yin Hanjiang and others during the day, Bailey Qingmiao was almost killed by Yin Hanjiang. It was Zhong Liqian who dissuaded him, while Yin Hanjiang barely suppressed his killing intent. Before leaving, he gave Bailey Qingmiao a vicious look that scared Bailey Qingmiao so much that she started to have a high fever on the spot. Zhong Liqian drove away Ultra Master Shirtan to prevent him from aggravating Bailey Qingmiao's illness. He also ordered Xie Huai to feed Bailey Qingmiao medicine. After seeing her condition stabilizing, Zhong Liqian said to Xie Huai, "Come with me to the main altar's spirit gathering formation, your master's master is still waiting for help. It's really not easy to worry about both of them." He instructed Bailey Qingmiao to recuperate quietly. Xie Huai would come back to take care of her tomorrow. Bailey Qingmiao drifted off to sleep again, but in the middle of the night, a chill suddenly rushed to her heart. She opened her eyes with a jolt, and through the night saw a man standing in front of her bed, looking at her quietly. The last time she was woken up like this, she saw Yin Hanjiang holding a triangular bayonet and tracing it on her face. This time, before Bailey Qingmiao could see the face, she pulled up the blanket and hugged it tightly, shivering. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" "It's Venerable." When Renha raised his hand and lit up the oil lamp in the room with a move of his hand, revealing his face. "Senior Wen Renha." Bailey Qingmiao was surprised. "Are you still alive, or am I dreaming?" "This Venerable is still alive." Wen Renha said. "It's great that you are still alive, it's my fault that you fell into the underworld blood sea. At that time, I swore that if you survived, Bailey would be willing to do everything for you. No matter what you want me to do, I promise you I will do it." Bailey Qingmiao was so excited that she burst into tears. She stumbled out of bed, and was about to kowtow to Wen Renha. "No need." Wen Renha couldn't let Bailey Qingmiao kowtow to himself. He turned sideways to avoid it and said. "This Venerable is here and just wants to know one thing." Bailey Qingmiao. "Senior, please ask." "If this junior knows anything she will say. What makes love so deep that you don't know where it comes from?" "I understand the meaning of this sentence, so I don't mean it literally." Wen Renha said. He was just thinking for a long time while he was at the back of the mountain, but his mind was messy and he couldn't understand whether Yin Hanjiang's feelings were real or illusion. He also didn't understand how he wanted to respond. He thought that he probably still had a poor understanding of love, and still couldn't understand the true meaning of this sentence. It was precisely because of this that the 30-year relationship between Beili Qingmiao and Zhong Liqian he arranged was still that of siblings. He could never understand why Beili Qingmiao was so devoted to He Wenchao and he did not know how to respond to Yin Hanjiang. This, what else could be said without explaining the literal meaning? Beili Qingmiao blinked her single black eye, hoping that she could have the wisdom of big brother Zhong at this time. You don't understand. Wen Renha looked at Beili Qingmiao. Isn't that exactly what you felt for He Wenchao? Not only are you deeply devoted but you are also infatuated. He Wenchao has already married a wife, but you still can't forget him. He imprisoned you in the back of the mountain, and hung you in the underworld blood sea, but you are willing to repeatedly attempt suicide because of him. This venerable wants to know, what kind of feeling is that? Can people? He paused, remembering Yin Hanjiang lips on the wine cup and clutching his robe as he sat alone at the edge of the spiritual spring. He felt a trace of inexplicable fluttering in his heart, so he continued. Can make people go mad in love so they can't help themselves. Wen Renha thought that Beili Qingmiao could not give him the answer, but she scratched her hair and said. I don't know, I only know that I love my brother, even if he is already married. But why do I love it? Before he got married, I loved how gentle and considerate he was. I loved elder Marshal brother for secretly taking care of me, but now he is still pestering me after his marriage. I only feel sorry for both me and Sister Lu. What do I love about him? It's the most repulsive thing I have done, so what do I love about him? She then closed her mouth and resenting it she said. I still want to die for him, what do I want? Wen Renha. Beili Qingmiao looked like she was on the verge of breaking down and couldn't seem to be able to solve his doubts. The more Beili Qingmiao thought about it, the more she felt something was wrong. She scratched her hair into a mess and walked around the room puzzled. Strange, I seem to be divided into two parts, one who is sensible and telling me to let go and the other self that is still in love with elder Marshal brother. I even hope that when Sister Lu is gone, elder material brother could marry me. What exactly am I thinking? Senior, she went to Wen Renha's side and tried to grab Wen Renha's hand looking for help. Wen Renha avoided it in time, but his sleeve swept over Beili Qingmiao fingertips and passed through her hand. Beili Qingmiao. It's just that, seeing as you can't protect yourself, this venerable asked the wrong person. Wen Renha avoided Beili Qingmiao, took out a stone and said to her. I need to borrow this object for a period of time, when you need it, it will be returned to you. What is this? Beili Qingmiao stared at the red stone and swallowed her saliva. She never wanted or longed for an object like this, as if it was originally hers. This is God's blood, Wen Renha said. It can help stabilize the chaos energy of this venerable and cultivate my divine body. Without it, I am just a shadow that no one can see or touch. This was another guarantee that the innate goddess had left for her reincarnated self, in addition to the innate godhood. She hid her blood in the chaotic energy of the sea of blood, so when Beili Qingmiao became an immortal and was about to enter the divine realm, she would be able to feel the echo of the divine blood. At that time, with the help of the divine blood that contained the essence of the innate godhood, she would be able to smoothly fuse with her divine consciousness. In the book, the moment when Renha fell into the underworld blood sea because of his karmic relationship with Beili Qingmiao, he came into contact with the divine blood and he understood many things when he touched it, throwing the divine blood to Beili Qingmiao before he died. The moment Beili Qingmiao received the divine blood, the karma owed by Wen Renha was paid off, and from then on he no longer had any contention to female lead. In this life, Wen Renha, just like in the book, fell into the underworld blood sea and naturally came into contact with the divine blood. When he got the divine blood, Wen Renha finally understood where his karma with Beili Qingmiao began. More than 300 years ago, the divine consciousness of the innate goddess helped Wen Renha set foot on the path of slaughter. 300 years later, Wen Renha, who had already become the Devil Venerable, had to obtain the divine blood for Beili Qingmiao. Every bite and every sip was preordained, all of them had their own destiny. The so-called deep love without regret was just a karmic debt. It was to ensure that Wen Renha would not covet the power in the divine blood and take it for himself. Wen Renha had planned to return the divine blood to Bailey Qingmiao upon meeting her and have nothing to do with her from now on. However, at this moment, he needed this divine blood in order to convince Yin Hanjiang, who was haunted by heart demons, that he was still alive. How can I be the one to make the decision on such an important thing? Just take it and use it, senior. Bailey Qingmiao said as she held back her thirst for the divine blood. Thank you, Wen Renha nodded. This venerable will certainly give all he can to help you get everything back. The person's silhouette shifted after he said that, the oil lamp went out and Wen Renha disappeared. Bailey Qingmiao was still feverish, so she sat frozen on the bed, scratched her messy hair and said, "Was this a dream or it really happened?" But not a moment later, she laid back down and fell asleep again. After Wen Renha borrowed the divine blood, he came back to his original room and saw that Yin Hanjiang had placed the robe on the inner side of the bed, sleeping himself on the other side, not occupying the other half of the bed at all. Most cultivators rested during meditation and cultivation, so they hardly needed any sleep. However, Yin Hanjiang seemed to be drunk, his cheeks slightly red as he slept prudently in Wen Renha bed, not daring to cross the half-line of the bed even a little. He was like a different person compared to Yin Hanjiang that was controlled by heart demons just now. Wen Renha gently climbed into the bed and lay down on his side, quietly looking at his sleeping face. Patriarch Yin Hanjiang, Wen Renha said softly. You like this venerable, it is your right, but this venerable is not qualified to make promises. As for me, how should I respond to you? Whether it's a refusal or a promise, it's not something that can be said in light-hearted words. The heart of Yin Hanjiang needed to be cautiously cherished. Yin Hanjiang slept until 3 in the morning, he bent his index finger and touched his brow. He then looked at Wen Renha, who was lying on the other side of the bed. Looking at him, he reached out and pulled out the robe, saying indifferently, "How can you touch this robe?" Wen Renha. Edited by Ninja, proofread by Neo. Chapter 59. Advancing and Retreating Together. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Fortunately, Wen Renha had not yet used the divine blood to transform himself into an entity, but was lying on the robe with a body made out of chaotic energy. In fact, it was very simple for Yin Hanjiang to realize that Wen Renha was real, as long as he called Zhong Liqian, Xu Yanyan, Qiu Zongxue and others. Anyone could reveal the truth, but was this really feasible? Yin Hanjiang was an introvert who always hid his true nature under normal circumstances, and would only occasionally put on a mask to let off steam when he couldn't stand it anymore. In the latest version of the abusive love affair, Yin Hanjiang did not show any signs that he was dealing with heart demons in front of Zhong Liqian and Bailey Qingmiao, except for giving Bailey Qingmiao murderous looks. There was nothing else. Even when he was delirious, he still remained calm in front of people and never revealed any weaknesses. What would happen to Yin Hanjiang if everyone told him that what he saw was not a result of his heart demons? Would he gladly accept it or completely collapse? When Renha didn't dare to gamble, it was a consequence he could not afford. If after returning to the sect at the beginning, he went straight into the main altar and announced to everyone that he had come back, everyone would have been informed at the same time and Yin Hanjiang would have accepted it gladly. But if that had been done, Yin Hanjiang would have chosen to continue to hide his feelings. The heart demons that affected his mind would have never disappeared just because Wen Renha was still alive, and the nature that had always been suppressed would destroy Yin Hanjiang sooner or later. It was good, at least in this way he could secretly observe Yin Hanjiang from the side, understand his closest subordinate and most trusted person, and then slowly eliminate his heart demons. For the first time, Wen Renha, who had always been straightforward and violent when deciding things, felt helpless. It was as if he was using the strength needed to lift a mountain just to embroider a flower with a needle. Sweating profusely, he handled it lightly for fear that he might damage the flower and sting people. After Yin Hanjiang got up, he didn't look at Wen Renha, even he himself did not know how many Wen Renhe there had been in front of his eyes, each of them talking to him, so he had learned to ignore it. When he was alone, he would pay attention to whoever he wanted, but in front of people, he remained Patriarch Yin, who was strong enough to crush the experts of the righteous path. He woke up, cleared the smell of alcohol with his spiritual skill, sat down at the table with a clear head, and sent a few messenger talismans. The first one was to Zhong Liqian. Altar Master Zhong, after you have finished curing Protector Qiu, bring me a plan to get rid of the 8 experts of the righteous path as well as He Wen Chao. If you can't give me a satisfactory answer before my patience runs out, I will act according to my idea. The second one was to Xu Yanyan. Protector Xu, you have had contact with He Wen Chao and know that his weakness is women, so you and Bailey Qingyao should discuss a way to lure He Wen Chao into a trap and force him to betray the blood demon ancestor as soon as possible. The third transmission talisman was for Wen Renhe. Yin Hanjiang refined it, but did not send it out. There was only one simple sentence on it. Young Master Zhong has been invited to become altar master of the main altar. Xianyuan's sect is alright, please cultivate at ease venerable. After refining the transmission talisman, Yin Hanjiang held the talisman in his hand, but did not activate it. To send the transmission talisman, you must first determine the other party's location and awaken the other party's spiritual awareness. Only when the other party's spiritual awareness was awakened could it be sent, so there was no way to send this message talisman to Wen Renhe. I know, you did a good job. Wen Renhe sat opposite Yin Hanjiang and said to him seriously. Yin Hanjiang didn't even care about this hallucination that couldn't even call itself the original, and just left the room after he was done. After Wen Renhe cast an illusion on himself in the room so that no one else could see him, he followed Yin Hanjiang out and saw that he went to the main altar to get the full roster of Xinxiao. The Xinxiao was originally a force cultivated by Altar Master Yuan, so the large part of it was directly under the command of his command instead of under Xianyuan's sect, so it was possible that not all of the members would be on this roster. Holding the roster, Yin Hanjiang coldly summoned Altar Master Miao and then left Xianyuan's sect's main altar, quickly thinking of cleaning up the sect. Wen Renhe wanted to follow him, but he was worried about being detected and he still had to make some preparations, so he could only act separately for the time being. He knew that Yin Hanjiang could definitely find the traitor in the Xinxiao and reorganize the Xianyuan sect's personnel, but he still couldn't help being a little worried. It had nothing to do with trust, he was just worried about it. At this point Wen Renhe could not help but sigh. If only there was a book with Yin Hanjiang as the main character so that he could always keep an eye on Yin Hanjiang's whereabouts. As soon as Yin Hanjiang left, Wen Renhe immediately went to the main altar spirit gathering formation. At this time the only person who could help him with advice was Zhong Liqian. Zhong Liqian had just helped Qiu Zongxue recover from her injuries when he received Yin Hanjiang's message. He picked up the pile of jade slips from the main altar and sorted out the most important information to read. Even if he had extraordinary wisdom, he still had to know the situation and enemy before he could act. The most important thing now was finding out a way to satisfy Yin Hanjiang while also discouraging the other party's desire of destroying half of the cultivation world. While he was studying hard, Zhong Liqian suddenly felt a gust of wind blowing. He had blindfolded himself for more than 30 years now, so now his spiritual senses had become sharper than ever. Zhong Liqian put down the jade slips and released his spiritual awareness. He couldn't feel anyone in the room, but he felt that the aura in this room was many times more dense than before. No, it was not aura or even immortal qi. Zhong Liqian as a Mahayana realm cultivator was in contact with scattered immortal Qiu Zongxue, so he already knew about immortal qi. But the aura in the room was even more powerful than immortal qi. Who is the expert? Zhong Liqian asked. Crane Hair Scholar is really true to his name. This venerable has concealed his body, so even a cultivator with good eyesight may not be able to see me, but you were able to find out. As he spoke, Wen Renhe revealed his true form, which Zhong Liqian's spiritual sense immediately detected. He took a deep breath and said with an arch of his hand. Master Wen Renhe is still alive, but Li Qian is not sure whether to congratulate Venerable from escaping death or on his great increase in power. He also added, "Have you informed Patriarch Yin of your return, Venerable? Patriarch Yin nearly destroyed the Shangqing sect for Venerable's sake. He will be very happy to know that you are safe and sound." After first complimenting Wen Renhe, he then subtly suggested to the Devil Venerable, "Hurry up and go see Yin Hanjiang, 2 more days and he won't be able to resist a killing spree. This Venerable knows." Wen Renhe said. "This Venerable has come here to discuss a matter with Altar Master Zhong." Hearing Wen Renhe address him as Altar Master, Zhong Liqian's face stiffened slightly and he said modestly, "I am really not worthy of being Altar Master. If Yin Hanjiang says you should be, then you should be." Wen Renhe interrupted Zhong Liqian's words. "This Venerable also has something for you to do. After this is done, I will lift the tracking spell and the compulsion gu for you." Zhong Liqian. Originally, he thought that Wen Renhe would take charge of the overall situation after he came back and Yin Hanjiang would no longer be obsessed with revenge so that harmony would be restored in the cultivation world. After eliminating the blood demon ancestor and helping Beili Qingmiao get rid of her love, then Zhong Liqian would be able to become a free scholar and travel the world teaching. But now, alas, there are 9 out of 10 things in life that are not as good as they should be. Cultivating the truth, the cultivator must be open-minded and transparent. Zhong Liqian adjusted his state of mind and still good-naturedly asked, "I do not know what Venerable wants to order." 2 things. First, collect all the secret books on heart demons and look for medical practitioners who can cure them. Second, cooperate fully with Yin Hanjiang and help him subdue Xianyuan sect. Let him do whatever he wants to do, without paying attention to this Venerable's previous plans. Wen Renhe instructed. Wen Renhe knew clearly that Yin Hanjiang's condition could not be hidden from Zhong Liqian, who might have already sensed it and just not said anything. So instead of hiding it from Zhong Liqian, it would be better to bring in a helper. With Zhong Liqian covering his tracks, Wen Renhe could act secretly and slowly guide Yin Hanjiang to recovery. "Venerable, do you know what Patriarch Yin's original plan was?" Zhong Liqian said cautiously. "He originally planned to unify the cultivation world by high-handed means and kill everyone who opposed the Xianyuan sect's rule. Starting with eliminating all the sects that participated in the attack against you." Wen Renhe really didn't know about this. The book only stated that Yin Hanjiang wanted to kill He Wenchao. He thought about it for a moment and then said with a low laugh, "He is ambitious." There was no hint of blame in his words, and even a little appreciation. Zhong Liqian. He boldly released a ray of spiritual consciousness to circle around Wen Renhe, carefully observing Wen Renhe's state at this time, and a guess arose in his heart. "Before Venerable meet me, is it possible that you went to find Patriarch Yin first? Did he say something to you?" Wen Renhe gave a slight pause, before looking carefully at Zhong Liqian. Seeing the other person's determined expression as if he had seen through everything, he could not help saying, "Altar Master Zhong is really blind, but this Venerable is not. I advise you not to guess any further. You also do not need to say what you have guessed. This Venerable already has a clear idea. You just need to cooperate with this Venerable and act secretly. Do not let anyone know that this Venerable has returned. But if Patriarch Yin insists on killing people, Liqian will definitely stop it." Zhong Liqian saw that Wen Renhe was going to fully support all the decisions made by Yin Hanjiang, so he also made his position clear. "He will not." Wen Renhe said with certainty. Yin Hanjiang was a child he personally taught. Even if he was a bit shy and silent, he was still a good child. "What if?" Zhong Liqian insisted on an answer. "Bvec, what if?" Wen Renhe thought for a moment before he said. "Then Altar Master Zhong can unite the entire cultivation world against Yin Hanjiang, but this Venerable will still work together with him." This. Zhong Liqian could not help but shake his head and smile. "I really should let Beili Qingmiao see with her own eyes how Venerable treats Patriarch Yin. What does Altar Master Zhong mean?" Wen Renha looked at Zhong Liqian in disbelief. Nothing meaningful, when Venerable wants to know, he will naturally understand. Zhong Liqian said. Inexplicably and thoughtlessly, when Renha urged Zhong Liqian to do his work, and made the already overworked altar master share his workload, Zhong Liqian then sent a message to the right protector, saying that Bailey Qingmiao was so desperate to die that if it continued, he was afraid that he would develop heart demons, so he asked Protector Shu to find a medical cultivator with excellent medical skills. He also asked Altar Master Shirtan, who cultivated 7 sufferings of the earth, to collect the secret books on the 2 sufferings. At the same time, he entrusted Altar Master Wan with inquiring about the techniques to cure heart demons. At the same time, he continued to memorize the contents of the jade slip with great speed, and by the time Yin Hanjiang returned with a bloody aura, Zhong Liqian already knew the Xianyuan sect like the back of his hand. Yin Hanjiang left all the remaining trustworthy Xinxiao to Zhong Liqian, leaving it to him to manage these people. He himself went back to the spiritual spring to cleanse himself from the smell of the blood. When Renha, seeing that he didn't try to avoid him, also entered the spiritual spring, sat on the edge and said. In just one day you made Xinxiao bend down, Patriarch Yin really impressed me. When Renha thought Yin Hanjiang would still ignore him as usual, but unexpectedly Yin Hanjiang suddenly looked at him and coldly ordered. Come in. Me. When Renha was not sure which heart demon Yin Hanjiang was referring to, after all, he could not see the world from Yin Hanjiang's eyes. It's you, the one most unlike the vulnerable. Yin Hanjiang said. The author has something to say. Zhong Liqian, who witnessed the large double-standard scene. I feel a little tired and need to rest. When Renha Yin Hanjiang. You don't need it. Zhong Liqian. Is this kind of common in and out? Edited by Ninja, proofread by Neo. Chapter 60. What is infatuation? You are listening at novelfull.audio. The present him was actually the most unlike himself. When Renha became speechless for a moment. He really wanted to see what Yin Hanjiang's heart demons looked like, or rather what Wen Renha looked like in Yin Hanjiang's imagination. At this moment, Wen Renha was in a state of chaotic energy, with illusionary clothes on his body. He didn't use the divine blood. Since Yin Hanjiang was already taking a bath, it would not be good if he also did not have clothes. When Renha entered the spiritual spring without stirring up the water as if he was one with the water. He kept a palm-wide distance from Yin Hanjiang's shoulder as they soaked side by side in the spiritual spring. When Renha turned his head and intently looked at Yin Hanjiang. This was a patriarch Yin he had never seen before. Every action and every word was almost the opposite of the original, but still able to wonderfully and perfectly blend with the past Yin Hanjiang, without the slightest sense of dissimilarity. In the past, when Renha looked directly at Yin Hanjiang, he always avoided it, either turning his face sideways or lowering his head, seldom looking at Wen Renha. This time, however, Yin Hanjiang looked straight at Wen Renha. There was also still some murderous intent in his eyes that had not yet been dispersed. He dealt with many Xinxiao today. These people were obviously subordinates of the Xianyuan sect, but they colluded with Altar Master Yuan, the cultivation sects and major cultivation families. Yin Hanjiang interrogated many of the Xinxiao, and learned that there were many scum among the cultivation sects and families who were secretly doing things that were harmful to heaven and earth. Then through Altar Master Yuan and the Xinxiao, all of their evil deeds were blamed on Xianyuan sect. The Venerable generally did not care about these trivial matters, and since most of the altar masters were too lazy to care about the problems or had brain problems, these issues were piled upon the seemingly good old altar master Yuan, who then had proceeded to throw all this dirty water on Wen Renha. Forcibly kidnapping boys and girls for pill refining, massacring and refining souls of a whole village, kidnapping babies under 1 year old for refining magic weapons, killing 6 to 9 months pregnant women to take their babies, and so on. Many of these things made you feel dirty just by listening to it, but Yin Hanjiang patiently listened to all of them one by one and took note of the names of those who did these evil things. He wrote down their names and killed a bunch of Xinxiao to vent his anger. Then he gave the remaining as gifts to Altar Master Miao. Altar Master Miao joyfully received these people and didn't let go of even the remnants of their soul, claiming that it would be able to cultivate the Gu King who could control a scattered immortal, specifically Qiu Congxue. After killing people, the Alcade triangular bayonet consumed a lot of human blood and vibrated. Yin Hanjiang forced the magic weapon into his dantian, but the excitement in his eyes could not be hidden. The Wenrenha's around him praised him, but there were also those who were not pleased. Their ramblings were very annoying to Yin Hanjiang's ears. After returning to the Shenyuan sect, he did not want to go back to his room covered in blood, so he came to the spiritual spring to cleanse himself. Then he saw a heart demon quietly looking at him by the spring, standing out among the crowd of Wenrenha, so he thought of asking him to accompany him. Killing people made him a little out of control, so Yin Hanjiang needed to calm down. He wanted to his lord but did not want to be controlled by heart demons, so it was better to choose the one that was least like him. What is the difference between me and Wenrenha? Wenrenha asked. He wanted to know what Yin Hanjiang saw at this time. Yin Hanjiang's eyebrows were stern as he gave him a disdainful glance, seemingly unwilling to talk to his heart demons. But Wenrenha's question still stirred up memories for Yin Hanjiang, who lowered his eyes, making his long eyelashes fluttered slightly. Yin Hanjiang reached out to cup a handful of water and tossed it on his face. The splashed water slid from corners of his eyes, not knowing whether they were water droplets or tears. Wenrenha placed his hand in front of Yin Hanjiang's face and watched as the drop of water passed through his palm and fell into the spiritual spring, disappearing into the water. For a moment, Wenrenha had an impulse to remove all the water in the spiritual spring to find these drops of water. The fragility belonging to Yin Hanjiang disappeared in a flash, so if Wenrenha hadn't been watching him with rapt attention, he probably would have thought he was just cleaning his face. Wenrenha suddenly remembered that when Yin Hanjiang gave him a moon in the water, he had said that when he was bored with sword practice, he would play with water at the waterfall. How many times had he used water to hide his emotions in what appeared to be a playful act like now? Wenrenha's impression of Yin Hanjiang started from a scarred child who then turned into an adult, silently following behind the Devil Venerable. For more than 10 years of his growth, Wenrenha was never involved, so he did not know what he was like at that time. You shouldn't like me. Wenrenha sighed. Wenrenha is not worth it. These words angered Yin Hanjiang. He had never paid any attention to the heart demon, but he did not expect illusion from deep within his heart to say such a thing. Yin Hanjiang struck at Wenrenha with his palm, but when he was about to touch the illusion, he shifted his palm and the force brushed against Wenrenha's face, shattering a stone a few meters away. As long as it was Wenrenha's face, Yin Hanjiang couldn't even attack an illusion. If this continued, how would he be able to cut through his heart demons and heal? Wenrenha's heart, which was always cold and rigid, ached dully. He wanted to tell Yin Hanjiang that it would be easier to let go of his love, but he couldn't say it. With such a pure and sincere feeling right in front of him, how could he Wenchao claim to love Bailey Qingmiao, but then go on to make out with other women? Wenrenha really didn't know. In vain he looked at the sky. He had seen through a lot of the world's mysteries, so why could he not see through the love of this world? Yin Hanjiang got up angrily, put on his clothes and returned to Wenrenha's room in rage. Heart demons could say anything, but why would he think that Wenrenha was not worthy of his love? Wenrenha followed after him and saw that his hair was still wet as he lay on his side of the bed. When he saw Wenrenha come in, he shouted, "Get out!" The feeling of being yelled at was very new. Who was the last person who yelled at Wenrenha? It seemed to be the Purple Spirit Pavilion Master, who was still a scattered immortal more than 40 years ago. What happened to him now? It seemed that Qiu Congxue had turned him into a ghost puppet, so when Xie Huai was away he could take care of Bailey Qingmiao instead. Of course Wenrenha didn't go out, it was only right for him to stay in his own room. He stood in front of the bed and saw Yin Hanjiang's chest bulging with anger, but apart from his anger, he did not suffer internal injuries due to the reversal of his genuine qi, so he put his mind at ease and sat by Yin Hanjiang's bed. Yin Hanjiang couldn't do anything about the heart demon, and he also didn't want to destroy the furnishing in Wenrenha's room. Finally he could only get up and stare at his heart demon in anger, and after being angry for a while, he said to himself somewhat weakly, "What am I angry about? The heart demon naturally wants to find a way to disturb my sanity so that it can take advantage of the situation and lure me into darkness. Not yet, I can't give up yet. I never thought of disturbing your sanity, I just don't understand why you like me to such an extent." Wenrenha asked. He thought he was not doing enough. What he gave wasn't enough, what he did was not worth gaining such pure affection. What do you, an illusion, who can't even call himself the original, know? Yin Hanjiang said coldly. After saying that, he no longer paid attention to Wenrenha and sat cross-legged silently reciting the clear heart mantra, entering a meditative state. Wenrenha stared at him for a while, seeing that he was in meditation and not knowing how long it would take him to finish, he turned around and went to look for Zhong Liqian. "Is there a solution for heart demons?" "Zhong Liqian. You've only given me half a day." Sensing Wenrenha's impatience he added. "There is a scattered immortal named Yao Zheping, who is one of the top medical cultivators in the cultivation world. Protector Shu has invited him to Shenyuan's sect and is currently negotiating." Yao Zheping. He remembered that this person was one of He Wenchao's little brothers who was originally a scattered immortal with an eccentric personality and excellent medical skills. He Wenchao once came down the mountain and met a young lady of the Gongxi family, who was a very unpredictable person. At first she looked down on He Wenchao but later got along with him as her last resort. He Wenchao took her to medical cultivator Yao Zheping to ask for help. Yao Zheping, who appreciated his devotion to this woman, helped him. From then on Miss Gongxi also fell in love with He Wenchao and became one of his wives. Medical cultivator Yao Zheping also had a past, he once had a sweetheart who suffered the same injury as Miss Gongxi. At that time Yao Zheping's medical skills were not as good as they were not, so he could only watch his sweetheart die. From then on, he became an eccentric immortal who was devoted to medical art who didn't take anyone in his eyes. Only He Wenchao caught his eyes, and the two became close friends. He Wenchao saw that Yao Zheping was devoted to his dead beloved and admired him very much. He also helped him solve some troubles many times while Yao Zheping was a person difficult to describe. What he wore and used day to day were things that his beloved gave him back then. He spent whole days pining for someone else and hating himself for being useless back then, like a lovesick prodigal son. But his way of doing things was also completely unfathomable to Wenrenha. His medical skills were unmatched in the cultivation world, so many people went to him for help. Yao Zheping's requirements were also very spontaneous. Sometimes he wanted the other person's most important thing, sometimes he asked for the wife or daughter of the person to accompany him, all depending on what he wanted at the time. Generally, the women chosen by Yao Zheping all had some resemblance to his beloved in appearance or character. He often would have intercourse with that woman while silently remembering his past with his beloved. Afterwards, the woman with whom he had an affair with would be thrown aside, because no one could compare to his beloved, showing an expression as if the other party was so dirty. He Wenchao recognized that Brother Yao was an infatuated person, and promised to help Yao Zheping find the reincarnation of his beloved if he became a god in the future. In the third volume, Yao Zheping really found his sweetheart, and the two of them got together happily without any bitterness. After reading the book, Wenrenha only wanted to say that Yao Zheping's infatuation was really the same as He Wenchao, they were really the birds of the same feathers. Edited by Ninja, proofread by Neo. Chapter 61. The Trick is the Trick. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhong Liqian was using the treatment of Beili Qingmiao as an excuse to entrust Xu Yanyan with finding the medical cultivator, but he understood what kind of character the right protector was. Beili Qingmiao sought death in the Shenyuan sect for more than a year, but no one thought of inviting the medical cultivator. Instead they asked Altar Master Shirtan to stay for the night, but Beili Qingmiao's condition only worsened and she slept for more than a year. However, it was not more than 10 days after Yin Hanjiang returned to Shenyuan's sect when Zhong Liqian asked the right protector to seek out a medical cultivator. It was self-evident for whom this medical cultivator was. But Xu Yanyan did not reveal it. After all, she also thought that Yin Hanjiang's current state was not right. When Renhe was still around, she already sensed that Yin Hanjiang had a tendency to become obsessed. What she didn't expect was that just as she sent someone down the mountain, she would meet Yao Jieping, known as the #1 medical cultivator in the cultivation world, which made her a little wary. After entering the cultivation path more than 600 years, Protector Xu had assisted 3 Shenyuan sect patriarchs and had experienced countless things. As a cultivator who often made troubles for others, she firmly believed that things that were very easy to get were mostly traps, while things that were sent to her door were either bait or poison. So she immediately reported the incident to Yin Hanjiang, saying that the altar master Zhong is looking for a medical cultivator to treat Bailey Qingmiao. First, to let Yin Hanjiang help her to take care of it, and also to push this matter to Zhong Liqian and Yin Hanjiang, so if there was a problem with Yao Jieping, the responsibility would not be hers. Secondly, if Yao Jieping was really here to treat Bailey, he could also meet with Yin Hanjiang and then secretly observe Yin Hanjiang's illness. After the report, Xu Yanyan personally served Yao Jieping a cup of finest spiritual tea and ordered her subordinates to serve countless spiritual fruits as she herself gracefully sat in the chair and said, "I have heard that you never visit patients personally, but today you were willing to come to Shenyuan's sect as a guest. I am really grateful." Yao Jieping said, "Today is really a coincidence. I happened to be out looking for medicine, and came across your people. I happened to be in a good mood, so I came to have a look. But I have a few rules for healing people. I only treat those who were already treated by others and couldn't be cured. If your symptoms aren't rare enough, you won't be treated. Those who cannot afford to pay for the consultation fee will not be treated." His appearance was above average, comparable to Zhong Liqian, but his tone was very arrogant. But it was still reasonable. Yao Jieping was a scattered immortal and his strength in the cultivation world was not low. His medicinal skills were also excellent, so there were always people who would come to him to seek medical treatment. Naturally, he had reason to be arrogant. Zhong Liqian's own strength was not enough, but the Zhong family as a whole was strong, so he naturally could also be arrogant. "The first 2 points are in line," Xu Yanyan said. "But I wonder what kind of consultation fee Master Yao wants." Yao Jieping stroked Xu Yanyan's finger and arrogantly said, "That's something to be determined after seeing the disease. I have already sent someone to bring her here." Xu Yanyan didn't seem to feel Yao Jieping's gaze and clapped her hands gently, making her 2 subordinates lift Bailey Qingmiao up. At the same time, Yin Hanjiang, who was dressed in red, also came to the waiting room. He stood outside the door and did not enter, but met Zhong Liqian, who came in a hurry at the front of the door. Zhong Liqian had dealt with Yao Jieping in the past. When traveling for 30 years, Xia Huai had been injured and Bailey Qingmiao took Xia Huai to seek medical treatment from Yao Jieping. Yao Jieping was an eccentric, so he asked Bailey Qingmiao to give him her nascent soul or body in exchange for saving Xia Huai. In order to save Xia Huai, Bailey Qingmiao chose to give her nascent soul to Yao Jieping. Fortunately, Qiu Zongxue arrived in time to convince Yao Jieping to save people, and since then this group of people formed a feud. When he heard that Xu Yanyan had invited this person to the sect, Zhong Liqian's original intention was to test Yao Jieping first to see if this person had the ability to heal Yin Hanjiang. If not, he would drive him out of the sect, and if he was capable, everything could be discussed. Coincidentally, Wen Renhe also had the same idea. Yao Jieping's behavior had nothing to do with Wen Renhe, since he didn't believe that he would speak big in Shenyuan's sect. So he concealed his body and followed Zhong Liqian to the waiting room. Unexpectedly, he also met Yin Hanjiang. Zhong Liqian was slightly surprised, so he approached Xu Yanyan with his divine sense, deliberately making her aware of his probing, to show his doubt. Shouldn't healing Bailey Qingmiao be first reported to the patriarch? Xu Yanyan pretended not to notice Zhong Liqian, making up her mind to play dead. Anyway, she did not offend Yin Hanjiang. "It's you. Yao Jeping, seeing Zhong Liqian, raised his eyebrows, and then looked at the unconscious Beili Qingyao surprised. The person you want me to heal is actually her. When he saw Beili Qingyao, his face flushed with a hint of surprise, but it was quickly concealed. Ignoring Zhong Liqian, he directly went to examine her injuries, with a serious and responsible attitude, completely unlike the appearance of a former enemy. Yao Jeping's unusually gentlemanly checked Beili Qingyao pulse, then frowning said. Her soul-bound magic weapon was destroyed, making her dantian severely injured. There is also a hidden demonic qi in her body, her soul is unstable and she also has a high fever. How strange that a cultivator would suffer from a mortal's disease. In addition, she seems to have been inflicted with goo worms and spells, but I can't be sure which one for now. Zhong Liqian's face was expressionless. Beili Qingyao's illness could also be credited to him. That's all that can be seen for now. Whether there are any other symptoms, further examination is needed. Yao Jeping withdrew his hand and said. I need a quiet room where I would not be disturbed. Zhong Liqian and Xu Yanyan were both stunned. Yao Jeping's attitude was completely different from what they had thought. Yao Jeping was narrow-minded, vengeful, and had a grudge against Beili Qingyao. Even if he wanted to save her, he would at least name conditions. How could he treat Beili Qingyao so easily and with such concern? Master Yao hasn't mentioned the consultation fee yet. Xu Yanyan took the lead and asked. There is no hurry. Saving people is the most important. As for the consultation fee, anyway, the consultation has not yet begun. Yao Jeping said. Master Yao is really a kind-hearted doctor. Regardless of past grudges, Liqian apologizes for his previous mistake. Zhong Liqian also said. That's not necessary, it was just a small conflict. Who could remember what happened such a long time ago? Yao Jeping waved his hand generously. I need a quiet room for my medical treatment, just prepare a separate room quickly. I'll order someone to prepare it. Xu Yanyan said. No need. Yin Hanjiang, who had been standing outside the door, pushed the door open and looked at Yao Jeping with a smile. I was worried about not having a chance to lure out He Wenchao, but you have come to my door. C. Zhong Liqian's eyelids jumped when he heard Yin Hanjiang's voice. He quickly said. Patriarch Yin, Yin Hanjiang interrupted Zhong Liqian. I know what you want to say. You think that although Yao Jeping has a bad character, his medical skills are still first class, which is the reason why he has not been killed yet after rampaging the cultivation world for so many years. You also know that his chance encounter with the disciples of Xianyuan's sect has another purpose, but Altar Master Zhong thinks that whatever his purpose is, as long as he can heal people, there is a need to negotiate, right? Without waiting for Zhong Liqian's answer, he looked at Xu Yanyan and said. And you, is the right protector afraid of me? Xu Yanyan's looked astonished, and her lazy and casual expression instantly became serious. She wore a thin lavender dress, revealing her perfect curves. But when Yin Hanjiang's eyes swept over her, Xu Yanyan instantly wore additional white cloak on her body, covering herself from neck to feet so that not a single piece of flesh was shown. As a subordinate, isn't it proper to fear Patriarch Yin? Xu Yanyan said with a dignified smile. She did not dare to show her charm to Yin Hanjiang. Whenever she saw those ruthless eyes, Xu Yanyan would only feel a toothache. In the past, with Wen Renhe around, Yin Hanjiang was silent and reserved, so Xu Yanyan still dared to be reckless. But now Yin Hanjiang was like a fierce beast without the shackles. She really didn't know what he would do next. You are not in awe, you are afraid. Yin Hanjiang showed a smile without the slightest warmth. You've seen the look in my eyes before and think I have a tendency to become possessed by heart demons. That's why you used Beili Qingyao as an excuse to find someone to treat me. It must be the idea of Altar Master Zhong, right? As Yin Hanjiang spoke, their hearts trembled and they did not dare to speak again. It was the first time that Wen Renhe had seen Yin Hanjiang handle the affairs of Xianyuan's sect. Yin Hanjiang, who no longer dealt with things according to Devil Venerable ideas, was unrestrained and dazzling. You guys think that this patriarch has heart demons, I will admit it. Yin Hanjiang's eyes swept over their faces as he said. But this neither affects my control of Xianyuan sect, nor will it hinder this patriarch from getting rid of the experts of the righteous path. You two do not need to worry about this anymore. This patriarch doesn't need treatment. When Renha was shocked, what did Yin Hanjiang mean by this? If you have a disease, you need to cure it. If he let the heart demons continue, sooner or later wouldn't he die? As for you, after Yin Hanjiang suppressed the arrogance of the two, he looked at Yao Jiaping smiling happily and cruelly. Do you really think that this patriarch does not know that you are He Wenchao's best friend? Seeing him coming towards him, Yao Jiaping was forced by Yin Hanjiang momentum to take a few steps back and hit the wall. He squeezed his medicine pouch around his waist and a silver light flashed, protecting Yao Jiaping's body. Body protection immortal jade. Yin Hanjiang said, you've collected a lot of good things over the years by healing people. Unfortunately, it's useless. With a casual move, he sheathed his alcade triangular bayonet and broke the space with a single move, breaking the body. Protecting immortal jade. The sharp tip of the blade stopped in front of Yao Jiaping, who shouted. This is impossible, this is an immortal jade that can withstand full strength of heavenly immortals' attack. It's a little worse than the Shangqing sect's mountain protection formation. As Yin Hanjiang spoke, his genuine qi struck Yao Jiaping's body, making Yao Jiaping feel as if a sharp knife was thrust into his meridians. At the slightest use of his qi, his meridians were as painful as if they had been cut by countless sharp knives. You knew that this patriarch had been hit hard by heavenly lightning and the Shangqing sect moon departing bell, so I must be seriously injured, so you were loitering around Xianyuan sect waiting for someone to bring you up to the mountain to heal me, right? He Wenchao should have begged you to save Beili Qingmiao, right? You wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to heal me, to ask for Beili Qingmiao in exchange for the consultation fee so that you can take her to meet He Wenchao. Maybe, you can also leave a little hidden danger when healing me, so that you can easily deal with me in the future, yes or no? Yin Hanjiang asked. He said their exact plan, making Yao Jiaping shocked. You, how did you know? How did he know? This routine had been written too many times in The God of Destruction, Volume 2, after Yao Jiaping had ascended to the immortal realm. He had been pretending to not know He Wenchao, and once He Wenchao had a grudge against someone, he would pretend to be a casual medicinal cultivator and defect to the other side, then he would cooperate with He Wenchao from the inside to defeat his opponent. This time it was also true. Yao Jiaping admired He Wenchao's deep love for Beili Qingmiao, so hearing He Wenchao say that his younger material sister was kidnapped by the people of demonic path, he thought she would suffer a tragic death. Seeing his appearance, Yao Jiaping remembered his beloved who died tragically back then and could not bear to see the couple separated from each other, so he agreed to help rescue her. He thought highly of himself, thinking that even if people of Xianyuan sect knew his intentions, they would take into account his status as a medical cultivator and not do anything to him. But the new patriarch, Yin Hanjiang, had no qualms and was not polite to Yao Jiaping, who shouted, Yin Hanjiang. Don't think I can't see that you have been consumed by heart demons. Even if you have strength comparable to a higher immortal, you will surely die in less than 10 years from the disorder of your meridians. The more you forcefully use the strength beyond the cultivation world, the faster you will die. I dare to guarantee that I am the only one in the cultivation world that can cure you, so sooner or later you will come on your knees begging me to cure you. No need. A triangular bayonet pierced through his throat, nailing Yao Jiaping to the wall as he bled heavily. Of course a scattered immortal wouldn't die easily. Yao Jiaping struggled but only found that alcade triangular bayonet was also piercing his soul at the same time. The more he struggled, the easier it was for his soul to split. Seeing that he finally became honest, Yin Hanjiang tore off the corner of Beili Qingmiao's clothes and wiped his hands and then threw it at Yao Jiaping's face. Altar Master Shirtan. Yin Hanjiang said, I remember you have a method of skinning to reshape someone's body. At this time, a person without a sense of presence that was hiding at the door, shivered and ran toward them in small steps. Yes, The skin is stained with person chi, so it's difficult to distinguish the real from the fake. I want this skin. Yin Hanjiang licked his lips. Ugly is ugly, but his body is about the same size as mine. Bailey Qingmiao has been a guest of the Shenyuan sect for more than a year, so it's time for someone to send her back to the Shangqing sect, isn't it? I can go back by myself. Bailey Qingmiao, who had come to her senses at some point, sat on the ground holding her knees, looking at Yin Hanjiang with a fearful expression. That's not good. Yin Hanjiang coldly glanced at Bailey Qingmiao, who suddenly no longer dared to speak. Patriarch Yin, although Yao Jeping has bad intentions, his words are indeed true, we need to save your life. Zhong Liqian, who received Wen Renha urgent voice transmission, said stiffly against the pressure. Patriarch Yin may not care about his own life, but if there is a 10,000th chance for Venerable Wen Renha to return, he will definitely not want to see you injured, Patriarch Yin. Zhong Liqian's words moved Yin Hanjiang. The hostile aura on the man in red was not as heavy as before, he asked. Altar Master Shirtan, will skinning kill someone? No, how would a scattered immortal die just because of skinning? Altar Master Shirtan said seriously. This subordinate will be careful and will definitely not hurt his life. Yin. You dare to touch me, just wait to die, I will never heal you, Yao Jeping said with difficulty as his throat was pierced. Yin Hanjiang simply ignored him, there were too many ways to make Yao Jeping agree. Within 3 days, this patriarch wants an intact skin. Altar Master Zhong, in addition to Xinxiao, I have also given you a list of those cultivators who committed devil deeds and pushed them on the Shenyuan sect. Within a month, I want to see these people alive. I also want to charge some interest for borrowing the Shenyuan sect name. After Yin Hanjiang issued commands, he no longer bothered and turned around to leave the waiting room. Venerable once said, there are various specialists for specific fields, so it was alright to leave troublesome things to subordinates, it was enough for the patriarch to wait for the result. When Renha ignored the troubled Zhong Liqian and followed Yin Hanjiang back to the room, then he immediately asked. Why don't you let Yao Jeping cure you? Isn't it okay to skin him after healing you? At this time, Yin Hanjiang finally answered, stretching out his hand and stopping just when he was about to touch Wen Renha's face, he whispered. After being healed I won't be able to see my lord. The author has something to say. Altar Master Shirtan. Seeing the way that Altar Master Zhong and Protector Shu did not dare to raise their heads in front of Patriarch Yin. I suddenly feel that I am being respected, am I going to be on top of my life from now on? Cough cough cough. Edited by Ninja, proofread by Neo. Chapter 62. Love Never Lasts. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Even though he knew that it was an illusion in front of him, Yin Hanjiang could not let go of the shadow of Wen Renha. Even if it meant that his life wouldn't be long, Yin Hanjiang wanted to see Wen Renha even if it was an illusion. The reason why heart demons were an obstacle to cultivation was precisely because those who were caught up in it did not want to leave. When reading Abusive Love Affair carefully, the point that Wen Renha paid most attention to was always Bailey Qingmiao. He didn't understand the heroine's willingness to hold out her bloody heart to be trampled by He Wenchao. At this moment, when Yin Hanjiang also offered such a vividly beating heart, Wen Renha once again didn't understand He Wenchao. When faced with such a heart, how did He Wenchao manage to fail her, hurt her and still demand her endless devotion in the name of love? He was able to hurt Bailey Qingmiao just because Bailey Qingmiao loved him. Now, a heart was in front of him. When Renha took out the divine blood and held the stone tightly, ignoring the fact that he now had no clothes, he grabbed Yin Hanjiang's hand and pressed it to his face. Yin Hanjiang never dared to pierce through this invisible barrier, so when Renha came to break it for him, this last step was taken by him. In Wen Renha's absence, the Yin Hanjiang he saw became even more dazzling and glowing than usual, and even more attractive than when Wen Renha was there. When Renha also saw Yin Hanjiang's heart, it was not a whim, it was a century-long attachment, it was so deeply rooted that it could not be removed. As for Wen Renha feelings, whether Wen Renha could accept Yin Hanjiang's heart, Wen Renha could respond to such profound feelings, the answer has long been self-explanatory. When Yin Hanjiang kissed him, he did not push back. Wen Renha was willing to secretly observe and let Yin Hanjiang take charge of the Xianyuan sect. When he was determined to go into underworld Blood Sea, he was worried that Yin Hanjiang would lose control. When he saw something good he wanted to give it all to Yin Hanjiang. The seed of love was planted long ago and took root when he read abusive love affair and could not accept that Yin Hanjiang became crazy because of him. Yin Hanjiang was special. From the very beginning, when Wen Renj passed by the mass grave and a pair of tiny hands grabbed his robe in a deadly grip, Yin Hanjiang took a special place in his heart. When Renha squeezed Yin Hanjiang's hands and did not let go, turning sideways he kissed his palm gently. Yin Hanjiang, this venerable allows you to like me, but Patriarch Yin, do you allow me to love you? He didn't know that in Yin Hanjiang's eyes, there were countless Wen Renha confessing in front of his eyes, and the real Wen Renha mixed in among them, seemed extraordinarily false. Wen Renha thought that Yin Hanjiang's heart demons were because of his death and desire, so at this moment by revealing his identity the heart demons would also speak for itself. He did not see the images in front of Yin Hanjiang's eyes, and did not know how false it all seemed. Not only his senses of sight and hearing were blinded by illusion, but even his sense of touch had become unreal. No, no, no. Impossible. Yin Hanjiang wanted to pull out his palm as he shook his head. You can't be venerable, you are just my heart demon. Compared to the person in front of him, the words of the immortal Emperor of Burning Heaven in the second volume of the God of Destruction seemed to be more convincing. Yin Hanjiang's gaze became frozen as he tilted his head, looking unnatural as he said. It was the future me who said that. Venerable once said that this second volume is a record of fate and Venerable is dead, he can't like he likes. Yin Hanjiang did not say, Bailey Qingmiao, because he didn't even want to mention this name. I am. Hearing that Yin Hanjiang believed more in the content of the book, Wen Renha took out Abusive Love Affair and the God of Destruction Volume 1 and 3. These three you saw me obtain with your own eyes, but heart demons will never show them because you never read them at all. You can open and read them now, the plot has changed so our fate can be changed too. Wen Renha did not forget to take out an ordinary dark blue robe for himself to put on, as he held on to the divine blood with one hand, while the other was wrapped around Yin Hanjiang's waist to prevent him from escaping. When Wen Renha wanted something he never let the other party have a chance to refuse. He was now more and more sure that Wen Renha in Abusive Love Affair definitely never loved Bailey Qingmiao, silently loving her and feeling at ease as long as he could see her happy with Yi Wenchao. Big mistake. Wen Renha was always selfish in love, so if the person he wanted was not his, Wen Renha would never give up even if it meant going against the heavens. Yin Hanjiang, the one who drank with you at the spiritual spring that day was me, in your heart you also know it. Wen Renha's forehead pressed against Yin Hanjiang's forehead as he said. Since you like this venerable, you are not allowed to look at heart demons, do you understand? What did you say? Yin Hanjiang could not believe it at all. From that day when he took the initiative to respond to heart demons, the one in front of him was no longer an illusion but venerable. He did not respond to Wen Renha, his mind was numb, and his headache was almost splitting his head open. Yin Hanjiang pushed Wen Renha away and held his head with both hands, feeling himself being divided into several parts. One side was telling him, believe it, believe that the person in front of you is real. Regardless of whether he is real or fake, just enjoy happiness, and Venerable's love for you. But the other side was telling him, how can Wen Renha like you? He has always been fond of Bailey Qingmiao and you saw it with your own eyes, he also died in Underworld Blood Sea to protect her. Another part of him was saying, all of it was heart demons, everything was false. Wen Renha saw Yin Hanjiang split into several parts and each of them wanted to break out of his body. But he did not dare to pressure any side, busy injecting a chaotic energy into Yin Hanjiang's body to help him stabilize his soul. Devil Venerable didn't understand, Yin Hanjiang liked him, so did he. Heart sickness needed a remedy. As long as you are true to your heart, the heart demons would disappear, and everything should be solved. Why would it turn out like this? Which one is true and which one is false? Yin Hanjiang scattered over his red eyes, that made him look nearly insane. When Renha grabbed the divine blood and said, Yin Hanjiang, look at me, look at this venerable. Yin Hanjiang calmed down a little as his eyes fell on Wen Renha's face, then he titled his head again seeing the red stone in Wen Renha's hand. What is this? He asked, pressing his hands on the stone. It's divine blood. Wen Renha replied. I've seen this stone. Yin Hanjiang put his hands on the stone, his eyes hesitant as he said in a trembling voice. Is it real? It's the one I got in underworld blood. See, before Wen Renha could explain the origin of the divine blood, which had a very complicated story behind it. Yin Hanjiang had already merged the divine blood with the stone that was thrown to Bailey Qingmiao in his memory, so he asked. Will Venerable give this thing to Bailey Qingmiao? Venerable entered the underworld blood sea just for it, right? It's not all, ha 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 ha. Before Wen Renha could finish, Yin Hanjiang spewed out a mouthful of blood and let out a bleak laughter. His almost split soul gradually fused together, but it was not in the way Wen Renha wanted. It seemed that Yin Hanjiang heard Venerable say, like, innate goodness and destiny with his ears, but he couldn't hear it clearly. His vision was blurred and it was hard for his ears to hear the outside world, what was true. Yes, Venerable said that what was written in the book was true. Yin Hanjiang grabbed Abusive Love Affair from the ground and casually flipped it to the last page and read aloud what he saw. Yin Hanjiang grabbed Bailey Qingmiao's neck, his expression hideous and twisted as he said sinisterly. Venerable died for you, shouldn't you mourn for him? In that moment, he could not hear or see anything and only saw the words before his eyes. He quickly looked at the bottom of the page and saw that he had failed to kill Bailey Qingmiao, who had jumped into the underworld blood sea with the divine blood in her arms and regained her divine consciousness. When fusing with her divine consciousness, Bailey Qingmiao's heart secretly lamented that if it wasn't for Wen Renha giving her this stone before he died, this time she would have died for sure. That's enough. Wen Renha, seeing that Yin Hanjiang only read the content before the revision and didn't listen to what he said, grabbed the book and tapped Yin Hanjiang's forehead with the tip of his finger. The chaotic energy entered Yin Hanjiang's body, strongly suppressing his genuine qi that was about to burst. Yin Hanjiang fainted with his brows still furrowed. Wen Renha picked him up and in flesh appeared in Zhong Liqian room. Why is this happening? Wen Renha said as he placed the unconscious Yin Hanjiang on Zhong Liqian's bed. Zhong Liqian put down the jade slip in his hand and did not ask what happened, as he checked Yin Hanjiang's pulse and asked after a while. Venerable, why did Patriarch Yin's mind suddenly in a state of turmoil? He was completely unable to suppress his current strength, which had reached the immortal realm, causing his genuine qi to go out of control and nearly explode his immortal soul. This Venerable also wants to know. When Renha hugged Yin Hanjiang, he didn't understand why things had turned out like this. Isn't it just a heart demon? Didn't the heart demon disappear after uniting the heart knot? Could it be that? Yin Hanjiang's heart knot was not that at all. Zhong Liqian was silent for a moment, then removed his blindfold and looked at Wen Renha's expression. He endured the constant appearance of Bailey Qingmiao in his vision to discern Wen Renha's expression and then froze. Wen Renha probably did not know what his eyes looked when he stared at Yin Hanjiang right now. They were full of heartache, compassion and fear. The Devil Venerable had never been afraid in his life, but in this moment he was afraid of losing Yin Hanjiang. Did Venerable say something to Patriarch Yin? Zhong Liqian asked as he put back his blindfold. This Venerable wanted to become a Tao couple with Yin Hanjiang for the rest of his life. Wen Renha said this not to Zhong Liqian but to Yin Hanjiang, but Yin Hanjiang couldn't hear him. Zhong Liqian's heart was clear as he said calmly. Venerable, when I first met Patriarch Yin, I could see the appearance of heart demons in him. I advised him not to ask for it, but he replied that he never asked for it. Although Liqian doesn't understand love, for many years he has read poetry in books. He also saw Miss Bailey's deep love and observed some truth. It is impossible not to ask for those who are in love. Those who do not ask are either not in love enough or don't dare to ask. Venerable, what kind do you think Yin Hanjiang is? Probably not daring to ask. When Renha secretly observed Yin Hanjiang these days and found that he seemed to be sure of one thing, that was, when Renha couldn't like Yin Hanjiang. If it was otherwise it must be a heart demon, a delusion, a falsehood. Venerable, whether one is overjoyed or overwhelmed with grief, one's mind is prone to insanity. Patriarch Yin has just suffered the pain of losing his beloved, and has been unable to believe that Venerable may respond to his feelings. His mind is hunted by heart demons. When he encountered a great joy, it was like a cup of porcelain in a blazing fire encountering cold water. When the flame was extinguished, the cup was not able to withstand the impact of the heat and coldness, so it broke. Zhong Liqian said. Yin Hanjiang's feelings were not as firm and powerful and unshakable as when Renha. His feelings were hidden in his heart for years and he didn't dare to say them to the illusion. If there were no heart demons, and when Renha guided him, boiling him slowly in warm water, Yin Hanjiang might have believed it. But now it was too abrupt. The combination of hot and cold could indeed balance the temperature, but the object inside, could it still bear such a huge energy? Zhong Liqian said. Venerable, have you heard that if you are in deep love, your wisdom will be hurt? Protector Shu has been playing with people. Why did you never pay attention to her? It is because the word love is too harmful to the body. Patriarch Yin relied on this obsession to forcefully enhance his strength, but the backlash was also stronger than with other methods. Heaven and earth are not benevolent, and great Tao is merciless. On the way to the Tao, there is only the path of emotionlessness, there is no path of infatuation. This Venerable understands. It is this Venerable fault. It was him who overlooked Yin Hanjiang's nature and the fact that his heavily traumatized soul was not able to withstand such news. When Renha pressed his lips to Yin Hanjiang's burning forehead and firmly said. But this Venerable will not admit his mistake. He sent a transmission talisman to the altar master Shirtan. Bring Yao Jeping to his Venerable. When the heart was moved it wasn't easy to put it down. Yin Hanjiang must accompany Wen Renha, life after life, and must not escape even after death. Edited by Ninja, proofread by Neo. Chapter 63. The Art of Entering the Souls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yao Jeping hadn't been skinned yet. Yin Hanjiang wanted intact skin, but Yao Jeping's neck was already pierced by Yin Hanjiang. In order to complete the task given by the new patriarch, the master of the under fire altar Shirtan Xian first carefully treated the wounds of Yao Jeping with a pill and then put him into the medicinal solution to soak. He must soak for 24 hours before it would be possible to get his exact appearance, otherwise it would be easy to reveal a flaw after changing shape. Shirtan Xian had always been obedient to Shenyuan's sect, but he had never been too important. But today Protector Shu and Altar Master Zhong were reprimanded by Patriarch Yin, but he got a task, so he was a little happy. Ever since he took the position of Qiu Zongxue and became the Altar Master of Underworld Fire Altar, Shirtan Xian's heart had been frightened all the time. Altar Master Yuan, who promoted him, colluded with the righteous path and was killed by Patriarch Yin. Protector Qiu brought back a man named Xia Huai, who was a ghost cultivator with a psychical body, and said that she would help Xia Huai kill his followers and take over the Underworld Fire Altar, when Xia Huai's cultivation became high enough. Zhong Liqian, the new altar master of main altar, was appointed by Patriarch Yin, also regarded Xia Huai as his own disciple, making altar master Shirtan silently weep in his heart, feeling that he will one day be killed off and it was difficult to live a long life in a high position. Fortunately, Patriarch Yin took over the position of sect master and reappointed him, so he must complete the task assigned by Patriarch Yin properly, cough cough. But who knew that just 3 hours later, after he started soaking Yao Jiaping, he received a summons from Devil Venerable Wenrenha. Venerable had returned. Then who would he listen to from now on? He didn't dare to offend anyone, so he picked up the half-dead Yao Jiaping and brought him to Wenrenha. After Wenrenha came back, he came to the room of Altar Master Zhong. Had the two of them been plotting how to get the Shenyuan sect back from Patriarch Yin? It was time for him to make his stance clear. Altar Master Shirtan made up his mind to pass the news to Patriarch Yin so he could make preparations in time. When the time came, Qiu Congxue, Shu Yanyan, Zhong Liqian, Xie Huai. Cough cough. Altar Master Shirtan, who was still thinking smugly, walked into the room and saw that the Patriarch Yin he wanted to defect to had been seriously injured and was lying helplessly in Wenrenha arms. His cough became even worse. Shut up. Devil Venerable, wearing a blue robe, was even more powerful than in the past. He didn't even look at Shirtan Xia as his gaze never left Yin Hanjiang's face, his fingertips tracing the corners of Patriarch Yin's lips. The thoughtful Zhong Liqian pulled Shirtan Xian aside and transmitted a message. Don't disturb the Venerable for the time being. Yao Jiaping is not dead, is he? He must not want me to behave well in front of Devil Venerable. Shirtan Xian secretly thought, but on the surface, he was still provocative in the voice transmission. Thank you for your advice, Altar Master Zhong, he is not dead yet. Cough, cough. Zhong Liqian's face turned to Shirtan Xian. He was obviously blindfolded, but it still made Shirtan Xian feel like all his thoughts were on display. It must be the moonlight that just happened to shine through the window on Zhong Liqian's face, which gave him this illusion. Shirtan Xian transmissioned. Is there something wrong with me for Altar Master Zhong Liqian to look at me like this? Cough cough. Nothing, I just didn't expect you to bring a cough with your voice transmission. Zhong Liqian transmitted his voice. Shirtan Xian. It was just a habit. He cultivated 7 earthly suffering so naturally he had to suffer all the time. Even if his sickness was sucked by Bailey Qingmiao, he could still pretend to be sick. Cough cough cough. Shirtan Xian did not dare to look at Zhong Liqian, afraid that this person would detect his own small thoughts, so he looked at the patriarch intently, only to see Wenrenha lowering his head and approaching Yin Hanjiang's face. Their faces got closer and closer, so close that Shirtan Xian blushed. When he was about to see what the Venerable wanted to do, his hair slipped down and blocked their faces. After a while, Wenrenha raised his head and said in an extremely painful and suppressed voice. This Venerable was too hasty. Altar Master Shirtan shrank in the corner of the wall and was so frightened that he bit 4 fingers with his teeth to prevent himself from making a sound. Just now he still saw a little something through the gap in the hair. What was Venerable doing? Absorbing Patriarch Yin cultivation. Zhong Liqian, who stood nearby like a blind man, did not respond. Oh, maybe he wasn't able to see it. Wenrenha didn't even look at Altar Master Shirtan as his hand stretched out to Yao Jiaping, making him fly to him. Wenrenha's 5 fingers rested against Yao Jiaping's heavenly spirit and with a casual jerk, he drew out from Yao Jiaping. This is, Zhong Liqian couldn't help but question. This Venerable learned in Underworld Blood Sea a cultivation method that can completely extract a person's memories, abilities and collect them for their own use. But it's just a side effect, not worth mentioning. Wenrenha said carelessly. Underworld Blood Sea sealed 180,000 demon gods, so it was not easy for Wenrenha to be there for more than a year. He used demon gods to destroy the bloodlines on his body, which was the same as destroying the foundation of his blood cultivation. He was also pierced by 9 experts before falling into a sea of blood, making him lose all his cultivation. He gambled on the stone in the book that protected Bailey Qingmiao and awakened her divine consciousness. As long as he could get this divine blood, Wenrenha would be able to cultivate in the sea of blood and absorb chaos energy. The first thing that happened was that the soul of Wen Renha was temporarily protected by the divine blood, but likewise, the divine consciousness in the depths of the sea of blood echoed with divine blood constantly dragging Wen Renha to the bottom of the sea of blood. That year, Wen Renha learned the method of cultivating from the divine blood, and absorbing chaotic energy while fighting against the divine consciousness. There were countless demonic gods at the bottom of the blood sea and they all wanted to kill Wen Renha and take his place in the cultivation world. The more Wen Renha fought the braver he became, killing many demonic gods and obtaining their cultivation methods. He had long wanted to return to the cultivation world, but the divine consciousness bound by the divine blood didn't let Wen Renha leave. It was not until a few days ago that the power of godhood suddenly became weaker, and Wen Renha had the opportunity to gather his strength to break out of the underworld blood sea. He later learned from the book that Bailey Qingmiao's heart and soul were badly injured in underworld blood sea, making her extremely close to her divine consciousness and being controlled by divine consciousness, making her want to die. It wasn't until Yin Hanjiang's killing intent awakened Bailey Qingmiao, making her willpower prevail, that the divine consciousness's binding power over the divine blood became weaker. Yin Hanjiang did a really good job. He didn't refine Bailey Qingmiao for lamp oil because of hatred but also inadvertently awakened her mind and gave Wen Renha the opportunity to escape from the underworld blood sea. Yao Jeping thought highly of himself and thought that his medical skills are unparalleled. However, Wen Renha didn't care whether he was willing to treat Yin Hanjiang because he only needed him for one thing. It was also because Wen Renha knew that Yin Hanjiang heart demons could be cured that he dared to tell him that he could be treated first and then change his shape. But after hearing Yin Hanjiang's reasons, he couldn't control himself. It was him who was too careless. Wen Renha quietly absorbed Yao Jeping memories, skimming over his past with Xiao Yi, as well as the pain that was unbearable every time he saw a woman similar to Xiao Yi. He could only remember his past with his beloved when he was with some soft body. For Wen Renha this was basically a blasphemy of feelings. No one could replace Yin Hanjiang, and the replacement itself was an insult to Yin Hanjiang. Soon, he found a way to cure Yin Hanjiang. Yin Hanjiang's problem lies not in his body, but in his heart. There was also no problem with his cultivation, only his state of mind couldn't support his cultivation. Strong power required a strong state of mind. Once the state of mind could no longer suppress the cultivation realm, you would become possessed. There were two kinds of people that ended up becoming possessed by heart demons. First, in order to relieve the frenzy in their body, they became bloodthirsty, while others, no matter how uncomfortable they were, would never hurt other people. Yin Hanjiang was obviously the latter. He had become accustomed to enduring. This kind of injury required a two-pronged approach. On the one hand, channel his genuine qi in his body, and on the other, use a soul art to find the crux of the problem and defeat the demons. It was easy to channel the genuine qi. When Renha chaotic energy could be transformed into various kinds of qi, it was after all the most fundamental energy. Any kind of genuine qi would be subdued in front of chaotic energy. When Renha stuffed the heavenly spirit back into Yao Jeping body and returned him to Altar Master Shirtan, telling him to do what he needed to do, and to perform the art of skinning as soon as possible while Yao Jeping was still alive. He glanced at Zhong Liqian, who had already left the room to set up a guarding array for Wen Renha, leaving only two of them in the room. Wen Renha carefully let Yin Hanjiang lie flat, then he bent down and pressed his forehead to Yin Hanjiang's forehead. At the moment, he had no entity, the body was the soul and the soul was the body. The light flashed and Wen Renha disappeared, leaving only a blue robe covering Yin Hanjiang. Yao Jeping's experience told Wen Renha that it was impossible for him to heal the wounds on heart at once, and he would have to enter his soul several times to do so. What Wen Renha had to do at this stage was to look for the point in Yin Hanjiang's memory that made him crazy, and temporarily return Yin Hanjiang to normal. Then he could move a little forward, and constantly install the message, Wen Renha is not dead, Wen Renha likes Yin Hanjiang, in Yin Hanjiang's memory. After Yin Hanjiang slowly accepts it, Wen Renha could slowly show it and tell Yin Hanjiang about it. He followed Yin Hanjiang's memories to a few hours ago to see Yin Hanjiang confronting himself. This time, through Yin Hanjiang's memory, when Renha finally saw how many other illusions were around Yin Hanjiang at that time. They all had different expressions, from affectionate to indifference to calmness to dominance, when Renha surrounded Yin Hanjiang, and each of them was a little bit like the original. Seeing this scene, when Renha smiled bitterly, laughing at Yin Hanjiang's stupidity in his own conceit. In Yin Hanjiang's eyes, there are at least a dozen people who were him, so how could he tell which one was true and which was false? It was too difficult. He looked at the man in memory who, after pouring out his heart, made Yin Hanjiang go crazy. He could have changed the conversation before he said it, but he didn't do it. He did not want to change Yin Hanjiang's memory casually, and even less erase what he himself said. He would not change what had happened. In his soul Yin Hanjiang read abusive love affair, spitting blood from his mouth, unable to see with his eyes or hear with his ears. Only when he was deep into his soul, when Renha could appreciate how much pain he really was feeling. It's not that he didn't want to believe it, but there was nothing he could do about it. When his sense of sight, hearing and even touch was betraying you, how could you believe in anything that was happening around you? Looking at Yin Hanjiang, who was kneeling on the ground and flipping through a book, when Renha walked over and opened his arms hugging Yin Hanjiang, who did not hide his vulnerability in front of Renha, and whispered. You can see me as a heart demon, I will no longer force you to believe me. But at this moment at least allow me to say something, at least hear my words and don't push me away. Entering the soul he became nothing more than a soul body, because everything here already happened. Yin Hanjiang would collapse again because of memory. He stopped and felt the warm body temperature of the person behind him. No one forced him to believe anything more, so Yin Hanjiang leaned in Renha's arms and quietly closed his eyes. As soul body Renha kissed Yin Hanjiang's forehead and grasped his cold fingertips as he said softly. You might not believe it, but at least look forward to it, accept that I am still alive, okay? You know that there are very few things in this world that can hurt you. Venerable was still alive. It made Yin Hanjiang very happy just to hear it, so he closed his eyes and nodded meekly. Seeing that he was willing to believe this, Renha became quite relieved. Now that Yin Hanjiang's mind was traumatized, it would hurt his soul if he stayed here for too long. Renha knew that it was about time and it was already too late to explain some things, so he just reminded him in a low voice. Yin Hanjiang, you have read the wrong page. When you wake up, open the abusive love affair and read the content that has already been modified by Venerable. After saying that, Renha left Yin Hanjiang's soul and returned to reality. Being in the room, he placed Yin Hanjiang gently on the bed, and left behind 3 books. Abusive Love Affair, The God of Destruction Volume 1 and 3 before turning around and leaving. Bailey Qingmiao did not know how many times she woke up from her coma, but she was so scared by Yin Hanjiang during the day that her fever would not go down. She was having nightmares. When she finally felt better and got up in a daze to get a drink of water, she saw a man standing at the head of her bed in the dark. Senior Renha. Bailey Qingmiao was covered in a cold sweat, but the fever subsided considerably. This Venerable has just come to tell you something, you should understand it after hearing it. Renha said. The junior will listen. Senior Renha, are you alive or dead? Bailey Qingmiao asked. This Venerable is still alive. Renha said. The words that this Venerable wants you to hear it, that Renha likes Yin Hanjiang. The author has something to say. Bailey Qingmiao. Wait, why are you telling me this? Zhong Liqian patting her shoulder. You need to learn how to stay quiet just like me, just smile. Edited by Ninja, proofread by Neo. Chapter 64. Moonlight clears clouds. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yin Hanjiang woke up in Renha's room. There was still a dull pain of misplaced genuine qi still lingering in his body, but it was already much better. His mood was unexpectedly calm, as if he had a long, long dream, dreaming that his lord had returned, and he was so overcome with grief and joy that he almost became possessed. Fortunately, when he woke up, he was able to recall two things. Venerable was still alive, and nothing could stop him. As long as Wenrenha was still alive, Yin Hanjiang was at peace. As for the other things, he didn't dare to think about them. There were 3 books on his bed. The first one was Abusive Love Affair. Yin Hanjiang did not move the book, but touched every illusion in front of him and became relieved after finding they were untouchable. He was unable to face these heart demons now, and the thought that the real Venerable might be hidden between them made Yin Hanjiang feel uncomfortable all over. In the past, when following Wenrenha, he developed a habit of patience, but a few days ago he was too indulgent. He didn't know how much of it was seen by the Venerable, but when Yin Hanjiang thought about it, his throat became uncomfortable and he wanted to vomit the blood. No, there seemed to be a time in his dream that Venerable cannot be touched or felt. It was not possible to distinguish between the heart demons and the body without an aura or entity. Yin Hanjiang looked at the heart demons in panic. Each of them were looking at Yin Hanjiang intently and affectionately, with a gaze that made Yin Hanjiang feel like he had no place to hide and made him want to completely disappear right there. He grabbed his arms and scratched them with his fingertips, forcing himself to calm down and recall what happened last night. In fact, his mind was very fuzzy. He only remembered that he seemed to have gone crazy, and Venerable seemed to say many things to him that Yin Hanjiang didn't seem to remember. The only thing that he remembered clearly was the phrase, "You have read the wrong page." When you wake up, read the content that has already been modified by Venerable. It was like Venerable whispered it in his ear many times. After calming down from last night's frenzy, he gradually believed that Wenrenha was still alive. Initially, his emotions fluctuated and he was almost possessed, but now that he calmed down he was able to treat the matter calmly. The sadness dissipated, leaving only joy. Yin Hanjiang tried his best to keep his face as calm and introspective as possible. He picked up the book, making a note fall from it. "I am with Altar Master Zhong, I am not among the heart demons." The note was signed by Wenrenha. Yin Hanjiang instantly felt relieved, his sitting posture becoming more casual as he leaned on the book in his arms, thinking that Venerable was still alive and had returned. The joy that surged in his heart made him smile. "Does it make you so happy that this Venerable has returned?" A heart demon leaned over the bed and asked. Yin Hanjiang didn't even look at the heart demon as he opened the book and started reading from the first page. The plot had been changed beyond recognition, making the revised version completely different from the original version. The original plot could only be seen from the comments from a long time ago. However, Yin Hanjiang still found out from the reviews a few years ago what he has done after Venerable death has not yet changed. When he thought that Venerable had read this book 40 years ago, Yin Hanjiang had an urge to punish himself. He was unable to continue reading the book after reading just a little bit, so he closed it and recited the clear heart mantra silently. Fortunately, Wenrenha was not in front of him, so Yin Hanjiang could remain calm. If it was like last night, Yin Hanjiang would have gone crazy again. It was a good thing that it was a book. You could stop and take a break from reading at any time. After Yin Hanjiang took a rest, he was just about to start reading again when he heard someone knock on the door before Altar Master Shirtan's voice was heard. "Patriarch Yin, this subordinate has something important to report. It's about Wenrenha." Yin Hanjiang didn't want to pay attention to him, but when he heard his lord's name, he hid the books and let Altar Master Shirtan enter. Shirtan Xian walked to the table and said to frigid Patriarch Yin. "Patriarch, this subordinate found out last night that Venerable Wenrenha is still alive." Cough cough cough. Yin Hanjiang said calmly. Seeing that Yin Hanjiang didn't respond, Altar Master Shirtan thought to himself that he must master his courage to remind Patriarch Yin. Now it was time to show his stance. Zhong Liqian had obviously followed Wenrenha, but he would have no future if he became Devil Venerable again, so his only choice was Yin Hanjiang. Thinking of Zhong Liqian, Qiu Zongxue, Shu Yanyan and Xia Huai who stared covetously at the position of Altar Master Shirtan felt like he had been a coward all his life. It was time to be brave for one. So he boldly said. The Patriarch might not know, but last night when Renhe and Altar Master Zhong Liqian have already tried to assassinate you once, cough cough. What did you say? Yin Hanjiang had a hint of killing intent hidden in his eyes. Altar Master Shirtan has the courage to slander Venerable in front of him, he should be killed without mercy. Altar Master Shirtan, who knew nothing about his killing intent, was still saying. Last night, the Devil Venerable had commanded me to take Yao Jiaping to the room of the Altar Master Zhong. After this subordinate arrived, he saw the Patriarch unconscious and the Devil Venerable doing something to you. I don't know what he did to you. Do you remember this incident, Patriarch? I don't remember. Yin Hanjiang looked at Shirtan Xian's sickly face and reached out to the other person's neck, palm of his hand against his artery. And what did Altar Master Shirtan see? Shirtan Xian said. Cough cough cough, although at that time when Renhe hair was hanging down blocking this subordinate's view, I still saw that Devil Venerable probably absorbed your genuine qi at that time, Patriarch. He told the story of what he saw through the hair and made a gesture to his lips. Absorbing genuine qi through the mouth and nose, Patriarch, you must check your dantian, they might have been tampered with, cough cough cough. Cough cough cough. This time, the one who coughed was not Shirtan Xian but Yin Hanjiang. After he heard the words of Altar Master Shirtan, his face was flushed, and he coughed violently. He also retracted the hand on the neck of Altar Master Shirtan to cover his coughing mouth. Altar Master Shirtan. Could it be that his sickness qi overwhelmed Patriarch Yin? That could not be right, his sickness qi was already taken by that girl Bailey a long time ago, he himself was not sick and his power was greatly reduced. He also only pretended to be sick to not show it to others. I understand, you can go out. Yin Hanjiang said after he had coughed enough. Shirtan Xian still wanted to say something, but seeing that Yin Hanjiang turned his face away from him, he could only disappointedly leave. When he reached the door, he heard Yin Hanjiang say. Do you have any wood or other materials for making masks? Yes. Altar Master Shirtan took out a piece of good Stygian iron from his storage bag which he kept for polishing his own soul-bound magic weapon at Mahayana realm. No need for such a good. Forget it, you can go. Yin Hanjiang accepted the Stygian iron and drove away Altar Master Shirtan. He squeezed the Stygian iron and the flames from burning sky drum wrapped around the material, quickly turning the iron into a ghost mask. Yin Hanjiang put a mask on his face, blocking his expression so his calm could calm down. This time he prepared himself psychologically before he opened the book and picked the chapter with one Renhe and read it. As for how Bailey Qingmiao gets along with Yuan Chao, the sect and what the four-person group did during their 30 years of travel had nothing to do with Yuan Chao, so he just skimmed it with a glance. In less than an hour, Yin Hanjiang turned to the last chapter of the revised version and saw one Renhe standing beside Bailey Qingmiao's bed and saying to her. The words that this venerable wants you to hear it, that one Renhe likes Yin Hanjiang. He had heard this once last night, but his mind was so confused that he didn't know whether to believe it or not. More importantly, at that time, Yin Hanjiang already believed in 70% that one Renhe liked Bailey Qingmiao and almost became possessed. Now, after reading the original ending and comments, he knows that this was a revised part that had not yet happened. There was also the report from Altar Master Shirtan. He put on the mask to reassure himself, but reading one Renhe say these words in front of Bailey Qingmiao had a different feeling. He pressed the mask, afraid that it would fall down. Enduring his frenzied heartbeat, he continued to look down. Bailey Qingmiao asked nervously. If you are in love with Lord Yan, why don't you tell him directly? Wen Renhe smiled bitterly and said. He may not believe it. Bailey Qingmiao thought that Wen Renhe came to her to discuss his emotional problems, so she thought about it and finally suggested. Conveying feeling with words may be difficult, so actions are often more reassuring. Just like me. No, I am a wrong example, my elder martial brother could not reassure me no matter what he did. Your counterexample can also serve as a warning. Wen Renhe said. Bailey Qingmiao felt incredibly heartbroken for a moment, but she had a helpful nature so she had to talk about herself and her senior brother firmly, but the more she said the more she wanted to cry. This venerable knows and will take it as a warning. Wen Renhe said. That's why I have to explain it to you more clearly, hoping that he will understand. Whether it's the patient and introverted Yin Hanjiang or spontaneous and reckless Yin Hanjiang, this venerable likes all of them. Yin Hanjiang is Yin Hanjiang, there is no need to pretend. Seeing this paragraph, Yin Hanjiang only felt that his whole body was on fire. His body was cold and his blood was also cold, even after absorbing snow flame it did not alleviate too much. He knew that it was because his obsession was too deep and his heart demons were too deep to get rid of. Now seeing this passage, his whole body became hot and his blood seemed to be boiling. Then he looked at the revised version reviews. Strange, when I read the original version, I was afraid of Yin Hanjiang but now I think he is kind of cute. Taking a lady's skirt to wipe his sword in hand and treating the silly little heroine as a rag. A rag is better than lamp oil, I think he's sick enough to be kind of cute too. Oh my God, what have I experienced for so many years? I have changed from a simple girl to a strange aunt. Not only is she not afraid of seeing abnormalities, but she also wants to scream, "Ah, give this master a little bit more. I will go." You guys are still discussing the plot of the last chapter, so go read the latest chapter, something big is happening. In a typical Mary Sue novel, male lead number 2 confessed to male lead number 4 in front of the heroine. What kind of cruel and ruthless thing is the person upstairs saying, "I need to go and see it quickly"? After reading the latest chapter, I looked back at the tags of novels. Fine, the author not only changed the plot, but also changed the emotional type of the novel from romance to unknown. What does unknown mean? It means everything is possible. Wait, why are you still so calm after Wen Renhe confessed to Yin Hanjiang? Screaming. Objection. Where is the surprise from changing romance to boys' love? Person upstairs did not read the hot posts of the forum, on the hidden emotional lines in the original and revised versions of abusive love affair which has been analyzed very thoroughly. After seeing it, I suddenly realized that in the original version Yin Hanjiang loved Wen Renhe, so it was no wonder that he became crazy in the end. Originally I was afraid of him, but now, why do I suddenly want to hug the poor little Yin Hanjiang? It can no longer be called the original version or the revised version, but the past life and the present life. In addition to the discussion thread there is also some fanfic about the two of them. You should read it as soon as possible, before it gets deleted. I came back with a nosebleed. Yin Hanjiang is so cruel to others while being so cute in front of Venerable. It's so good. What I also want for Venerable is a red ruthless patriarch little wolf or something. Can't say it or I would be reported. Yin Hanjiang. Edited by Ninja, proofread by Neo. Chapter 65. A blow to the head. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Inside, Yin Hanjiang under the mask could not express happiness or anger. His fingertips rubbed repeatedly on the words, "Venerable is still alive," several times, making his heart beat wildly with joy. Although his memories were still chaotic, making the reality and illusion intertwined, the experience last night told Yin Hanjiang that when Renhe was still alive, he heard it from Altar Master Shirtan, and even this book which he regarded as evidence, also stated that the Venerable was still alive. This was more important than anything else, 100 times more important than the fact that Venerable also liked him. He couldn't wait to see Venerable, even if such intense emotions made the blood in Yin Hanjiang's body boil and his mind rampage, it didn't matter. Yin Hanjiang grabbed the note. Yes, Venerable must be in Zhong Liqian place. He squeezed the note tightly and flew to the main altar's council chamber, where he saw Zhong Liqian handling sect affairs alone. There were 4 or 5 Wen Renhe beside him, all holding the divine blood on their hands. Seeing such a scene, Yin Hanjiang stopped in his tracks. Why was this happening? Even though he knew that Venerable was still alive, the heart demons simply did not want to disappear, so he couldn't even recognize which one was the real Wenrenha. Zhong Liqian felt Yin Hanjiang's arrival and left the council chamber peacefully, leaving space for the two. Knowing that Zhong Liqian had left, Yin Hanjiang felt even more uneasy. Without someone to help him confirm, he could not discern. At this time Wenrenha said, "This Venerable will only become an entity after he holds the divine blood." Yin Hanjiang rushed over, gently holding the person who was solid. "Venerable." He knelt down on one knee, his voice repressed. "You're still alive, it's really." For a moment Yin Hanjiang could not speak, and vomited out a mouthful of blood. He didn't want it to be seen by Venerable, so he swallowed the blood back. Last night he had lost his mind, but today he would not let his lord see him like this again. When Renha pulled him up and said seriously, "Yin Hanjiang, I don't like you kneeling to me." He slowly took off Yin Hanjiang's mask and smiled gently. "Did you read what I have said?" "Read." Yin Hanjiang only said one word, and blood spilled from his mouth. He hurriedly covered it with his hand, but blood flowed between his fingers. Yin Hanjiang. When Renha never thought that the two of them would meet again like this. He had thought that they could at least meet and touch normally, but he did not expect that Yin Hanjiang was that tolerant. He almost didn't notice the other person's pain. He hurriedly put his hand on Yin Hanjiang's heart, injecting chaotic energy, and found that Yin Hanjiang's internal genuine qi was in a great disarray. He had clearly been treated last night, but seeing him today caused Yin Hanjiang to become injured again. "Venerable, this subordinate is fine," Yin Hanjiang said. "This subordinate is just happy." When Renha saw his reluctant appearance, he hurriedly put on a mask for him. With this barrier, Yin Hanjiang felt much better. At this moment, Yin Hanjiang was very upset. It's clearly a day of happy reunion, but he was. "Don't force it." When Renha covered Yin Hanjiang's eyes with his hand to prevent him from looking at himself again. In the darkness, Yin Hanjiang heard when Renha say, "Yesterday, I was anxious and that affected your cultivation. Even a slight up and down in your mood will arouse your heart demons. You have no immortal aura to nurture yourself in the cultivation world, so if you don't resolve your heart demons, it will be difficult for you to recover. This subordinate is useless." Yin Hanjiang clenched his fist. "Who says you're useless?" When Renha said, "You have done a good job during this period this Venerable was absent. You subdued the 2 protectors and 4 altar masters, stabilizing the sect and not letting Xianyuan's sect fall into chaos. You also reintegrated Xinxiao while discovering those who are against Xianyuan's sect. No one could do better than you." With eyes that were unable to see, Yin Hanjiang did not have to identify which one was real when Renha from a group of illusions. He also wore a mask so that when Renha could not see his expression, these 2 assurances calmed Yin Hanjiang's mind a little, so he could ask about what he was the most concerned about. "Venerable, why do you have to rely on divine blood to solidify your form?" When Renha briefly talked about what happened in the underworld blood sea, and Yin Hanjiang understood it as soon as he heard it. These people from the cultivation world most likely destroyed when Renha's physical body. So with his body lost, he could only use his soul to cultivate. Although his cultivation increased greatly after he absorbed the chaotic energy, it was not a way to regain his body. Knowing Wen Renha's experience in the past year or so, Yin Hanjiang hated He Wen Chao in his heart even more, making his expression under the mask twist even more. The power in the divine blood has to be preserved for Bailey Qingmiao for the purpose of subduing the divine consciousness, so I can't use it willfully. Xianyuan sect still needs you to manage it. About the blood demon ancestors matter, you can do whatever you want. Wen Renha said. Through entering his soul last night, Wen Renha knew that he was depressed in his heart, and had been living in his own shadow all the time. If he was not allowed to stand in front of others to rebuild his confidence, it would be impossible to eliminate his heart demons. The only way was to let him vent out, and he Wen Chao and the blood demon ancestor would be the best breakthrough. Yin Hanjiang immediately cheered up when he heard that he could protect Wen Renhe. Yes, the people of Xianyuan's sect must not find the weakness of the Devil Venerable, he must protect his lord. Seeing Yin Hanjiang's spirit perking up, Wen Renhe said again. Last night, the situation was urgent, so I needed to use the art of entering the soul to appease your spirit temporarily. This technique can only be used once every 15 days, and needs to be used several times for you to be completely cured. Would you like me to enter your soul again? Yin Hanjiang said, it is an honor for this subordinate that the Venerable is willing to save me, how could I not want to? When Renhe sighed, he said helplessly. Yin Hanjiang, I don't want you to call yourself a subordinate, and I don't want you to call me Venerable. Yin Hanjiang froze, asking him to call Wen Renhe by his name. How could it be possible? Wen Renhe did not want to force Yin Hanjiang to do anything, so he just said. For the time being, when the heart demons are not cured you can still call me like this, but after they are cured I will be angry if you continue to call me like this. Wen Renhe knew that Yin Hanjiang was very upset because he could not tell him apart from the illusion, and did not want him to see his more dark side, so he thoughtfully said. I need to refine my soul, so I will practice at the spiritual spring in the back of the mountain. You can just do your things or come to spiritual spring the next time I will need to enter your soul, or you can come to spiritual spring when you want to see me. Yin Hanjiang naturally wanted to see Wen Renhe all the time, but he also knew that his state was not right, forcing himself to go would only add to the worries of Venerable, so he just nodded in response. He felt a warmth in his hand and touched something soft. Wen Renhe gently kissed Yin Hanjiang's palm and took away the abusive love affair from his arms and disappeared. He was gone for a long time before Yin Hanjiang slowly took off his mask. He stood alone in the hall, sometimes smiling and sometimes gloomy, his expression terrifying. Yin Hanjiang thought about a lot of things, but he didn't seem to be able to think about anything. He went to the table on which the information that Zhong Liqian had received from the Xinxiao was placed upon, and that he had still not had time to process. Before, Yin Hanjiang ordered the Xinxiao organization to investigate the whereabouts of those scums who slandered Xianyuan's sect. Xinxiao organization, which was washed clean through a bloodbath by the new patriarch, worked very hard and collected the movements of more than a dozen people in just one day. Yin Hanjiang left with the list and brushed past Zhong Liqian, who was standing in front of the door. Zhong Liqian. 3 days later, Yin Hanjiang came back with several disciples of the righteous path tied up and carried them to the main altar before throwing them to Zhong Liqian. I've got these people, next I will also get Wen Chao. Think of the way to lure those experts out. I want the blood demon ancestor to have nowhere to hide in front of everyone. Zhong Liqian. A few days ago, Patriarch Yin gave his subordinates a month's time, and it's only been 3 days. Even if you capture these disciples, we still need to find a way to control them and then sneak back to their respective sects to create momentum and cooperate from the inside and outside. It will take some time. Moreover, he also had to be the emotional guidance of Wen Renhe, who obviously could see through everything and pretend to know nothing, making Zhong Liqian very tired. Yesterday Xu Yanyan came to visit him and picked up a strand of white hair from the ground. Her words were full of disgust as she said that crane hair scholar sounded nice but he shouldn't become bald. After becoming linked with Bailey Qingmiao through the compulsion gu, he had sold himself to Xianyuan's sect and embarked on the road of no return. He was highly respected in the Zhong family, and no one dared to speak loudly in front of him. The scholarly disciples of Zhong Liqian were also highly esteemed. But in Xianyuan's sect he was called upon by the 2 rulers, trying in good conscience to find ways to help the demonic path eradicate the scum of the righteous path while occasionally being molested by the right protector. The 3 grandchildren of the left protector also gave him a headache. While he still needed to be Wen Renhe's and Yin Hanjiang's emotional guide. The strange thing was that he did not want to escape from the roles, but rather liked the headache that came with taking upon these complicated tasks. I'll leave these men to you. If the altar masters don't listen to your dispatch, come to this patriarch. Be sure to solve this matter in the near future, we can't make Venerable wait long. Yin Hanjiang said. Zhong Liqian touched the hair on the top of his forehead and responded helplessly. Then Yin Hanjiang immediately went to find Shirtan Xian and barged into the underworld fire altar with a fierce aura that scared a crowd of ghost cultivators to hide as far as they could. Have you finished skinning Yao Jieping? Yin Hanjiang asked impatiently. Cough cough, it's done. Altar Master Shirtan presented a set of well-folded human skins with both hands, and handed the shape-shifting instructions to Yin Hanjiang. Yin Hanjiang accepted the skins with slight disgust, then he took Shirtan Xian to the main altar and put him in Bailey Qingmiao's room and said. Suck back the sickness qi, I want to take her back to Shangqing school, her being so sickly will slow down this patriarch. Bailey Qingmiao knew that Yin Hanjiang was going to use her to lure out He Weqiao, so unable to bear it, she whispered. I heard Brother Zhong explain that the person who wanted to kill me that day was not senior brother, but the blood demon ancestor who possessed him. Yin Hanjiang did not have Wenrenha's patience when he dealt with Bailey Qingmiao, so he just grabbed Bailey Qingmiao's neck, making her unable to continue to speak, and said ruthlessly. It is an indisputable fact that He Wenqiao colluded with the blood demon ancestor. Even if he was being used, the karma can be counted on him. If you refuse to cooperate, I will find a way to break the mountain protection array and slaughter the entire Shangqing sect. The whole sect or one He Wenqiao, you can choose one. He threw aside Bailey Qingmiao and vaguely remembered the ending of the abusive love affair. Bailey Qingmiao dared to reject Wenrenha. He suddenly sneered and said. You are willing to give up everything because He Wenqiao taught you to cherish all living people in the world, then when it's people against He Wenqiao, who will you choose, Bailey Qingmiao? Yin Hanjiang was too straightforward, he threw the question directly in front of Bailey Qingmiao, making it difficult for her to choose. She opened her mouth but was unable to make a decision. Is there any need to hesitate about this? Yin Hanjiang forced her to look at him. If it were me, there would not be a second answer except Venerable. Bailey Qingmiao, you claim that you love He Wenqiao and you are willing to ignore Venerable's goodwill for you because of him, but now it's just Shangqing sect and He Wenqiao and you are unable to choose. Is it He Wenqiao you love, or are you indulged with someone's obsession? Think about it. His words were like a blow to the head, hitting Bailey Qingmiao's heart. Edited by Ninja, proofread by Neo. Chapter 66. The so-called cause and effect. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Although his words about her love for He Wenqiao felt like a blow to Bailey Qingmiao's head, she was different from Yin Hanjiang. Yin Hanjiang could not care about the lives of others, but Bailey Qingmiao from the very beginning was not that kind of person. The words that woke her up were, willing to give up everything for He Wenqiao. She had always recognized her feelings, and Bailey Qingmiao subconsciously felt that she had already given up so much for He Wenqiao, so if she loved him so much, why did He Wenqiao still treat her like this? She couldn't accept it. But now it suddenly occurred to her that she didn't seem to have done too much for He Wenqiao. Bailey Qingmiao asked. Patriarch Yin, why do you think I gave up everything for my senior martial brother? Yin Hanjiang said. You took the snow flame for him. No, Venerable did tell him before that originally the snow flame was obtained by Bailey Qingmiao for He Wenqiao, but now it was absorbed by Yin Hanjiang. The Broken Mountain meteorite iron was also originally obtained by Bailey Qingmiao for He Wenqiao, but now it also belonged to Yin Hanjiang. The person who took a lot of things from Bailey Qingmiao and Venerable was Yin Hanjiang. Yin Hanjiang instantly became silent and quietly looked at Bailey Qingmiao, making it a little awkward. Yin Hanjiang didn't care about outsiders' life or death, but he had been alone for so many years, and except for Wenrenha's saving grace and teaching righteousness, he didn't owe anyone anything. However, when you thought about it, he owed Bailey Qingmiao through Wenrenha, at least the snow flame which Bailey Qingmiao got only after she had nearly frozen to death in Wanli ice field. Fortunately, Bailey Qingmiao didn't care about Yin Hanjiang's attitude. She shook her head and said. You also think I don't seem to give anything for my senior brother, right? But why do I always have a feeling that for my love for my senior martial brother, I have already given up a lot of things? When my senior martial brother's foundation was destroyed, I did get the 7-colored blue lotus heart for him, but in the end 7-colored blue lotus heart was given to elder martial sister Lu. I know that it was Protector Shu who dug up my senior martial brother's nascent soul, but now I am in the Shenyuan sect being taken care of by Sister Shu. Our relationship might not be close but we get along well. I left my sect after marriage between my senior martial brother and Sister Lu and traveled the world with Brother Zhong, Master Qingxue and Xiu Huai. In the Purple Spirit Pavilion in Taiyin Mountain, it's true that I got Lock Core Herb but it was not for my senior brother but for the sect master. After I barely returned to the sect, Elder Martial Brother asked me to assassinate Protector Chiu and I didn't agree. The more she said, the more bizarre her eyes became. What happened? Bailey Qingmiao scratched her hair into a mess and puzzled said. I was separated from my senior brother when he got married, nothing was done so far, so why do I always have the feeling that he has wronged me and I should give up on this relationship? If he failed me, he should also fail Sister Lu, right? Yin Hanjiang was familiar with this feeling. Up to now, when he saw Bailey Qingmiao he could not calm down his killing intent, feeling that she had failed when Ren has deep love. When he saw Bailey Qingmiao's confused look, Yin Hanjiang slowly pulled her sleeve and tore out a piece of fabric to wipe the non-existent dust from his sheath of alcade triangular bayonet. Whenever he wanted to kill Bailey Qingmiao, Yin Hanjiang would restrain himself in this way. Bailey Qingmiao, who had half of her sleeve torn off, had her thoughts disrupted. She looked at her tattered robe a little speechlessly, not understanding Yin Hanjiang's habit of using her as a rag. She coughed twice and looked at Altar Master Shirtan who was looking eagerly at her, and said with some embarrassment. Altar Master Shirtan, I can't release sickness chi, so I still need to bother you to do it yourself. Don't worry, I won't seek death anymore. Thank you for taking care of me. Cough, cough, I didn't take care of you, you snatched it yourself. Altar Master Shirtan coughed vainly twice and stepped forward to put his palm against Bailey Qingmiao's undershirt, drawing back the sickness chi he had cultivated for years. After Altar Master Shirtan completely drew back his sickness chi, he suddenly found that his cultivation had become stronger. It was reasonable to say that for him sickness chi was just like genuine chi, so it consumed a lot of it to transmit it. Altar Master Shirtan was prepared for the weakening of his strength, but unexpectedly his sickness chi became stronger. Bailey Qingmiao after this period of recuperation, had all her injuries basically healed, so as long as she found the right materials to refine her soul-bound magic weapon, she would be okay. Being weak and motionless was also due to the influence of sickness chi, so after returning sickness chi to Altar Master Shirtan, she was a lot more energetic and her thoughts also became clearer. She said to Yin Hanjiang, I can go back to Shangqing sect with you and lure out my older brother. Not only that, Master Qingxue. Protector Chiu has given me the weapon to control Elder Martial Sister Lu's soul oath. I can order Elder Martial Sister Lu to do things, but I have one condition. No negotiation. Yin Hanjiang said, his intuition telling him that it was impossible for him to agree. However, Bailey Qingmiao was persistent. When the Shangqing sect asked her to frame Qiu Zongxue, she did not agree, so now that Yin Hanjiang wanted her help to do things to Shangqing sect, she also wouldn't agree. Even if Yin Hanjiang did not agree, she still had to say it. Your ultimate goal is the blood demon ancestor. I heard from my brother Zhong that this blood demon ancestor killed 17 masters of the righteous path. After he breaks free, he will probably endanger the whole cultivation world. I, as the cultivator from the righteous path, must not let such a demon endanger the cultivation world, or even other realms. Putting aside my personal feelings, even if Yuan Chao did not know about it and was used by the blood demon ancestor, he is still to blame and cannot be considered innocent. Her words were reasonable and justified, which impressed Yin Hanjiang and made him listen patiently. So I'm willing to go to the Shangqing sect to lure out Yuan Chao, along with the blood demon ancestor. But He Wenchao must be handed over to the Shangqing sect or even other 5 major sects for public trial. We can't just do it casually. Bailey Qingmiao said seriously. Even without considering Bailey Qingmiao, how could Yin Hanjiang let go of He Wenchao? But Bailey Qingmiao's idea matched his. Yin Hanjiang wanted justice for his lord and wanted to show these people from the righteous path how blind they were, aiding the evil doer and trying to kill his lord. However, even after making this matter public, Yin Hanjiang was not going to spare the cultivators who participated in the siege that day as well as He Wenchao. He smiled coldly toward Bailey Qingmiao, not intending to tell her his thoughts, and just nodded. A public trial is fine. Patriarch Yin is righteous, Bailey will follow the patriarch. Bailey Qingmiao said innocently, clasping her fist. With her cooperation, Yin Hanjiang and Bailey Qingmiao decided to set off immediately. The clothes she was wearing were already torn and tattered, so she asked Yin Hanjiang to go out and wait while she changed into a robe that hasn't been used as a rag for Alcade triangular bayonet yet. As soon as she changed into a yellow light robe worn by the disciples of the Shangqing sect, Bailey Qingmiao saw a person appear in front of her. It was no other than Wenrenhe. Senior Wenrenhe. She clasped her fist and said. Wenrenhe was very surprised to see Bailey Qingmiao's decision through abusive love affair and had actually made a plan that if Bailey Qingmiao refused to agree to Yin Hanjiang's request he would possess Bailey Qingmiao and return to Shangqing sect with the help of her body to lure out He Wenchao. But it was very likely to be noticed by the blood demonic ancestor, so it was not the best choice. Now that Bailey Qingmiao agreed to cooperate, Wenrenhe was relieved but at the same time a little puzzled. You are actually willing to assist the Shenyuan sect in scheming against He Wenchao. This venerable thought that it would be impossible for Bailey Qingmiao to get rid of He Wenchao for the rest of her life. Wenrenhe said. Bailey Qingmiao blushed slightly, but she spoke from the bottom of her heart in front of her predecessor, who was a little cold, but had always taken good care of her. I was also very strange. At the age of 18, I thought I could live and die for my senior material brother. After the massive demonic war, I felt heartache when I saw my senior martial brother and wanted to give him my nascent soul. When my brother got married, I was in so much pain that if it wasn't for the help of brother Zhong I would have run back to the Shangqing sect to see him secretly. If he and sister Lu were unhappy I might have gone against my old principles and willingly committed myself to my brother, being someone I would not even spit on. Wenrenhe felt that her analysis was logical. The Bailey Qingmiao recorded in the book would have been with He Wenchao if it hadn't been for Purple Spirit Pavilion Master's repeated obstruction and become one of He Wenchao harem. She had been entangled with He Wenchao many times and even with her divine consciousness, she was not able to get rid of this abusive love. But now, everything was different. During their 30 years of travel, Zhong Liqian had taught Bailey Qingmiao well. Qiu Zongxue probably also played a small role. Bailey Qingmiao quietly thought about it before finally saying. I just carefully thought back to the action of my elder martial brother before he became married. It's probably because since childhood, I have loved my elder martial brother and given him more than 20 years of my youth and affection that it's hard for me to give him up. But now, I am almost 70 years old. In the mortal world, you already know your fate and you are less emotional and more rational at this age. Some things, some people, the more you invest, the more they want to get something in return. But if they don't get anything in return, they will hold on. But once you put them down early, you will find that all kinds of things back then were only obsessions. Patriarch Yin's words are not all right, but one sentence was right. I thought carefully about my entanglement with my elder martial brother and suddenly realized that I perhaps did not love him that much, but clung to the feeling of a person being moved by my love. Senior Wenrenhe, don't laugh at this junior. Can't even remember why she wanted to commit suicide for a whole year. Bailey Qingmiao's expression was indifferent, she was really awakened by Yin Hanjiang's scolding. Wenrenhe smiled faintly, thinking of the words he saw in the abusive love affair just now, and could not help saying somewhat smugly. About the matter of your love toward He Wenchao, I have been asking all over the place, from the Xianyuan sect to Zhongli Qian to Zhongli Fei and couldn't even get the answer from memories of Yao Jiaping. But I didn't expect that the person who would understand love would be right next to me. He worked hard, even thinking of methods such as tracking spell and compulsion goo, but still failed to wake up Bailey Qingmiao. But on the contrary, Yin Hanjiang saw it much more thoroughly than Wen Renhe. Yin Hanjiang loved a person without asking for anything in return and didn't need to hear Wen Renhe's response as long as he was alive. Even if Wen Renhe loved Bailey Qingmiao in the book, he could still protect Bailey Qingmiao and endure the heartache for the sake of his lord. It was also because he had such an experience that Yin Hanjiang could see through the crux of Bailey Qingmiao's issue at a glance, but he just couldn't keep calm. Bailey Qingmiao, Wen Renhe took out the divine blood and placed it in front of her. The karma I owed you back then, I will pay it back this time. This object is from your body. As long as you don't get too close to the godhood, you will not be affected by your feelings. From now on, you and I have no more cause and effect. Bailey Qingmiao took the divine blood, and for a moment, she only felt her body filled with power as the divine blood transformed into a red ribbon, becoming her new soul-bound magic weapon. She sat cross-legged and ran genuine qi to refine her magic weapon, and Wen Renhe could clearly see that she was practicing none other than the merciless path. Wen Renhe entered the Tao because of the war caused by the innate gods and gained the power to avenge his family. Yin Hanjiang was saved by Wen Renhe, who was obsessed with his thoughts, and deeply loved his lord. Bailey Qingmiao was haunted by her love and was awakened by Yin Hanjiang's words, from which she became completely free from her love and entered the new path. The so-called cause and effect seemed to have been decided long ago in the underworld. Edited by Ninja, proofread by Neo.